Hello. We're
Hello,
live.
everyone.
Hello.
Welcome back. Don't laugh at me, Tony. Otherwise, my my facade breaks. Welcome back, everyone, to the TaleChaser channel with our second ever episode of Behind the Tales, which we're going to be doing tonight because a lot of my group of Calamica's Chaos is gone at Elfia, or well, now they're back, but they are at Elfia today, and it was exhausting and everything. You might have spotted them there if you were there, but that's why there's no Calamica today. So we're doing a Behind the Tales. Again, tomorrow, most people of that group will also be at Elfia, so if you're there, say hello. For those of you wondering, why am I sitting here and not clearly in my room? Is I'm at Tony's. Tony's not saying hi, but here, I'm going to turn the camera. I'm at Tony's. You might recognize this spot from our live videos once we ever do those again, which we're going to be doing next month. But, well, that's an announcement. Announcements. Next month, Calamica's Chaos is going to do a game live again. It's like the third time. It's going to be cool. It's going to be great. We're going to be all here at Tony's. We're going to have fun. I don't think there's any more announcements before anyone jumps in. I don't think so. And if there's not, then I would like to introduce the people here today. You'll know most of them. This time, Gabe has his own spot. And
Finally got it.
let's talk about who's here. First of all, we have Amber sitting in the top left of our screen.
My dinner on stream, but that's life.
Mukbang stream.
Oh no,
please.
don't mukbang the halfling times.
I really want to do that once, where Tony just makes all the dishes out of the D&D cookbook, and then just a table full of them, and you just have a group like a juice.
Yeah, man.
Cookbook. Want it.
Here's Tony again. Here's Tony. Hi, everyone. Here's Tony. But you might recognize Amber from hosting Arcona's accounts on Fridays. Whoa.
Put my camera on. This is what I look like in my free time, guys.
You look
It's kinda
exactly like your
tragic.
picture.
Oh,
Yep.
Very exactly. Here,
of course.
Tony has the cookbooks. He wants to show the cookbooks for a moment. So here's the
Showing off your swag?
Yeah, here's the cookbooks.
You have both of them?
Yeah, he has both of them. People
This
are
is
jealous.
Excellent. Yeah.
I have like FOMO now.
Damn.
Damn.
We also have another one. It's a Legend of Zelda cookbook. There you go.
Oh.
If you want to see it, it's flipped. But there you go.
Never played it. I have no FOMO for this.
Next up, we have Liam, or how we normally refer to him. We have White and Lawrence.
Hello.
In second spot. You might recognize him from playing Lawrence on Arcona's accounts.
Yeah. This is what Lawrence looks like.
In real life.
I know. In real life. I promise I am not as boring as Lawrence is.
Well, Lawrence isn't boring. He's just different.
Is that how we call them now?
Okay.
I would not call him boring. I would call him different.
Well, I would call him boring.
And
I
if
wouldn't
the
be
player
friends
says
with
so,
him
you
if we
can't
were on the
really say no.
playground.
Yeah, valid. Next up, there's me, but since I'm going to say myself last, we first have Gabe on the bottom left.
Hello.
This is also how Gabe looks like in real life.
Yeah, of course. I'm a still image, really. It's all fake.
You might recognize him from playing Tokas and Arconis accounts. Everyone here is from Arconis accounts, including me.
And there we are.
And then we have Ferris, who's doing our stream today.
That
is also
correct.
from Arcona's account.
I am indeed. Play Vittorio. I'm a grumpy person there on Arcona, I suppose. And yeah, otherwise I do the streaming stuff for Arcona usually. Yeah, try to help out with some background stuff.
And last, maybe least, I hope not, but last but not least, me. I am Mark. I play Zarius on Arconis accounts, and I am the DM of Calamica's Chaos. And I generally I want to say have run the last behind the tails run, driven the conversation. And I don't know what to say. We've done it as a group. Um,
It was a group effort,
it was a group effort,
but it
and
was
like
also
you,
me.
and like you see on the beautiful screen made by Amber right now, I'm pointing this direction for those of you that aren't knowing is because on my camera this side is where Amber is. I know I have to do this. That's the right side, but it's confusing. But we are talking about West Marches and specifically running it and our experiences behind it. The reason why is because, like some of you might know, and I think a lot of people here know, what is now the TaleChaser Discord started out as a Discord for West Marches called Caracosta. Uh, even some of the style. Even some of the style that you see that we use here, like our logo, is similar to what used to be our logo for Caracosta. And due to some amount of nostalgia and other things like that, we are going to be discussing it from everything on how to run it, what good resources you can use to run one, to our favorite moments out of West Marches we've personally hosted or played in. Um, so yeah, this might be a bit more of an informational one more than a discussion one like last one, but I still think it is going to be very interesting. Um, with our first question up for today is, can all of you tell me in your own words, what is a West Marches? For those of the people that don't know, what is a West Marches?
You want a definition or you want a opinion piece?
You can do opinion. You can do opinion.
Objective opinion.
Objective opinion. Yeah.
Maybe it's a good idea to start with the definition.
Yeah.
Then see how far we go from it.
Mhm.
How far we
Yes.
What is the exact definition of a West Marches?
fall.
Hmm.
All right. So, as you know, in Dungeons and Dragons, a group of people, usually 5, maybe 4, maybe 3, we all know it's hard to get people to come together to play their sessions. But usually a group of the same people comes together each week, each month, at regular intervals to play a game of Dungeons and Dragons. West Marches style games, we don't do that. Well, they're still groups of people, but the group of people is comprised often of a vastly different, like huge pool of people. This can be 30 people, this can be 100 people. And they kind of just interchangeably create groups. There's often more than one dungeon master as well that puts out quests in a vast, expansive world and says, there's a quest today, and you can go do this and this and this. I need this many people. And those people can then say, okay, I want to go on that quest. And it's basically then a small, contained one shot. But the world itself is persistent. So it's not a one shot in the sense of, okay, you play Dungeons and Dragons once, and okay, then we leave that story behind, but you play little bits and pieces and stories of a larger overarching world that kind of has a focus on exploration above anything else. We call this West Marches because often the idea is that you start somewhere and the characters just keep on marching, west. They keep going further west, exploring more and more of this continent or a land or a different plane of existence, and just going on these little adventures together.
Yeah.
And now we can give opinionated pieces.
Now we can say what our opinion is, and because I think this is White's first time on here, why don't we need to start with
Yeah.
White?
Sure, yeah. I like to think of West Marches as kind of like a points of light setting where you have, as Amber said, you start in one place and you move from place to place to place to place. And those places you're often moving to are the various points of light in this expanse of darkness, the darkness representing the new, the unknown. It's a frontier, and so there's a lot of room for dungeon masters to get creative and build lots of very cool little projects and places and dungeons and loot and monsters and villains all together as a team, which is very different from the normal creative process a dungeon master gets to go through. And so for the DMs, I think it's quite a nice way to to learn and grow through that. I know that a lot of the dungeon masters that I met through my own West Marches at my university was, yeah, I still steal a lot of those ideas and use them in my own game, or they've shown me a new take on like some classic monster or some new idea, and I think it's a really great way for DMs, but also players to get that kind of broad experience of a whole bunch of other people that share your hobby and your enjoyment for the game, either from player side or a DM side, and kind of experience that. An Elven Blade Singer may not be a totally new concept to you, but it might be totally brand new to that guy over there. And when he hears about your character, he's like, "Damn, that's a cool character. I want to do that, but like in my own way, my own take." And their own take and their own way of going about it is cool. Or the classic way of, yeah, threw them against a gelatinous cube in a sewer. It's a classic D&D. But did you put it at the bottom of a pit trap, which the players, of course, fail their deck save, fall into, take the spike damage, and then are now suspended in a gelatinous cube that is just woken up as much as a cube can, because there's now a player inside of it doing lots
Yeah.
of flaily things.
Mm.
So I think it's a pretty good way to engage with the community, and I think it's much better than something like Adventure League.
I mean,
Which
you
is
rely on
yeah.
you rely on Wizards of the Coast with Adventures League to some extent. So I mean, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Anyone else have anything to add? I personally have something, but Ferris, Gabe.
Mm.
I'll take the last turn since I want to speak more of a player perspective than a DM.
Okay.
I've played multiple West Marches, but really DM'd in one.
Okay. What I want to add? Yeah, I mean, as Liam or White Liam, yes, Liam, sure, let's go with that. Said
Mentally adjusting to that one.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's like something where, technically speaking, both players and DMs can try out new things. And sometimes those things go kind of well when you try them out. Other times, it just doesn't go well at all. Or you come to realize that, okay, well, this particular thing that this player has managed to put together is not so fun to run for, because kind of ruins most of the encounters or things along that line. And technically, I'm saying a lot of technically. Man, my brain is fried today. It is also like the same on the player level. I mean, we can talk later about that. We have probably many examples from Caracost itself. We had like a barbarian, which after a couple of quests, if they were fighting intelligent monsters, they just literally ignored that player, because why? Why would they just keep hitting if they see that they're doing nothing to him? And obviously that player didn't really think that was fun, and that's understandable. But also, it's a problem.
Yeah.
Also,
think-
after DMing for like 7 barbarians, where all players have the same idea of, oh, this build is particularly strong, and they're going for a build rather than a character, has its own problems.
And I kind of want to jump. I kind of want to jump onto the. Oh, sorry. Did you want to say something?
No,
more?
no.
I kind of want to jump onto that part with the character part. I think one of the other great things about a West Marches is what a lot of people that play D&D might realize is scheduling conflicts get in the way of everything. It doesn't allow for a very consistent game, and sometimes you miss one and then suddenly you miss 3 and then you've missed 10 and then suddenly you've not played for a year. And I think West Marches is also a great tool where it isn't fully about a consistent schedule, and more you can hop in if you know you have the time in advance. This allows you to, while not having as impactful stories as you would have in a regular D&D, it allows you to create a similar experience in a much more flexible time schedule, which I think is one of the vast positives of West Marches. You have, especially if you have 100 players like Caracosta used to have, you always have people that are willing to join your quest on various amounts of times, and I think that is one of the most beautiful things about it. It allows new players to learn, new DMs to learn, but it also prevents scheduling conflicts from something that could become a hobby to then just be a one-time thing because no one can agree on a certain time to play. And that is kind of what I wanted to add, which I think is
Yeah,
a
no, it's a
really good
really
thing
good
about it.
addition, I think.
But Gabe, what about your perspective as a player?
As a player that learned how to play thanks to West Marches, I have to, well, attach myself to the description that Liam gave of this sort of like playground where you can experiment a little bit. I myself was introduced to D&D for the first time in a campaign, heavily homebrewed, with things made very little sense because I didn't understand what half of the PHP meant, nor did I have a PHP, so I couldn't really tell what the hell was going on and why I was rolling dice. Then I joined Caracosta, which was this at the start moderately sized West Marches that then grew very large. And there I learned how to play proper D&D, not only from my things, for what I created, but from mistakes and from happenings of other people. There, as a player, you're able to see and witness what other players are doing. And since there is a pretty huge player base, there's a large variety of individuals, a large variety of ideas, and, well, many things to take inspiration from, both as a DM and as a player, but also to learn from. I've learned a little bit of the basis of D&D and what I should expect, what I shouldn't expect, what is good to do and what is not good to do. A little bit of boundaries as well. I've learned that maybe, playing a game where the DM is homebrewing the entirety of the campaign is not exactly a good thing to do if you're a first-time player. Instead, here I had time, because as Mark mentioned, there were no time schedules that then gave me problems, because with many DMs, there are many quests that can be hosted at different time zones and different times of the week, allowing players to pretty much play whenever it is possible, whenever a DM is available. And I didn't have to worry about great in-depth character building. I didn't have to make huge backstories or things like that. It was kind of like an easy start. Make a short character which doesn't have to play every 1 day of the week, 2 days of the week, however often you play usually. It has a lot less requirements into it and allows you to get introduced to D&D as a role-playing game smoothly but also slowly, and then learn not only from yourself but from other people and also the many DMs that are in your West Marches, slowly increasing your skills and your knowledge about the game.
I think one thing that I agree on what Lupus said in our chat is
Just
it is a very different positive that a West Marches allows your character to interact with a vast majority of different player characters. To some extent, it might not, evolve to the emotional connection that you might have with a other character in a normal D&D campaign, but it does allow you to experience all these dynamic friendships, enemies, interactions with all these players. A lot of them who you're going to remember through one or two small things that might have happened in a session, but that will stick with you, which creates a really cool dynamic throughout this entire, system.
yeah.
So I think it's a very good point what Lupus has said in our chat.
Mhm.
I agree with this as well.
Yep.
I think in many ways, you have these people who are playing these characters, but some of them are like further away from you, and you only see what they do through listening into the sessions or seeing afterwards, like session logs or people discussing these things in the chat. And it kind of makes the world feel more alive. It's almost like watching NPCs interact, but these NPCs all have their own, a different person behind the wheel with different, motivations than just a dungeon master running a whole like adventuring guild, so to say.
Yeah, and that is indeed. I think I want to build upon that. it allows even dungeon masters to not rely on NPCs as much to make the world feel alive, because a lot of your
Yeah.
players are going to do that for you, because all of them are their own individuals, all of them play their character, all of them have their own wants and needs and ways they interact with the world. Oh, nice. Sorry. uh, all of them have this their own way of doing what they want to do, which just creates a really lively world. Which we're going to talk about later, but there are some parts where you are going to have to be careful with that. Instead of it's not just a benefit, it can create a very, I don't want to say a problem, but it can create struggles in your West marches if not dealt with correctly.
Mhm.
But I think that is a good amount about what a West Marches is. I think one of the things that we are going to basically be focusing on is how to start one. Thank you, Al. How to start one. That's at least where we're going to start. Is like, where do you start when you're going to run a West Marches? And one of the first questions I think I have written down for us is what I think you need to be thinking about is, why are you starting a West Marches? I think that is one of the most important things. Why are you doing it? Why are you not hosting a regular D&D campaign? Why are you hosting a West Marches in particular?
Hmm.
Oh boy. Why did I start hosting a West Marches?
That is a good
I
question.
feel like it was kind of a coincidence, but also when I first started playing D&D, I didn't feel very confident in myself and my own abilities. Like when I started this West Marches, I was maybe like a year or like just over a year into playing as a player myself. And I was like, damn, can I actually do this? And I was talking one day with Mark and Jarix, the other person that, we formed the holy trinity with to start this whole endeavor. And I was like, maybe we can try like a different type of thing. I feel like maybe we watched some sort of like Matt Koval video once, or we saw it like pass by, and we're like, damn, this West Marcher style game, it's like we could work on things together and like create a world together, and I wouldn't have to feel so nervous about just being by myself and trying to have to remember everything by myself. And so we just started throwing ideas back and forth. And
Yeah, I think
it
I
is
remember linking you that video, being like, "Hey, check out this video." Bzz.
may very well have done this. Are you really the root of this West Marches?
I
Who
wouldn't be
knows?
surprised.
But to me, I think if you are less experienced, it can be a really great thing to have other dungeon masters to rely on to help you fill out things that you yourself aren't too confident with. Um, and so for me, starting with the West Marches, I mean, I literally, I forgot the saying, but I literally got raised as a dungeon master in like in the fires of hell. That's where I was forged here.
Straight
Um,
into the out of the frying pan and into the fire.
Yeah,
Literally
that's the one.
going from like I am so uncomfortable with the DMing, and I'm like scared, and also we already have 40 players, so like let's start writing quests, and some of them are like really experienced at Dungeon Dragons, so they're gonna know if you like mess up. And I was like, whew. My first quest, Mark was sitting next to me in a chair, and we were like making things up on the spot when people went off the thing, and like it's like really memorable to me. But yeah. West Marches. I guess that's how I got there.
I kind of want to jump in on there purely because, again, I started this West Marches exactly the same way as Amber did. Um, but now that I have had some time to like think about it, we've not hosted the West Marches for a solid 3 years, something like that. I
It's
think
been a while.
3 years
Really,
is
been that long?
pretty. Yeah, it's been a
Sheesh.
long time.
2022, my man.
2 years, something like that. I think 3 is a lot more accurate. But yeah, we've not hosted the West March for 3 years, and I think now, if I was to think again, I'd really recommend starting West Marches for one of two reasons. One is if you simply just have so many people that want to play D&D that you can't just do it in a campaign, especially if you have a friend that's willing to also host D&D with you, just to make the burden on you easier. Again, like the reason Amber said, basically you share the burden instead of having it on just one person. But the other reason I think is if you really aren't I won't say aren't available aren't available on a consistent schedule. I feel like a West Marches type of idea is a better option. Even if it was to be with like only 10 players, you could still have the same type of West Marches format to carry on. I think those are the two reasons you should think about starting a West Marches. I don't know if any of you have a bit of a different opinion on why you would start one personally.
I mean, no, not really different opinions on that. It is, yeah. I mean, it's good to also get get some experience. Though, yeah, you should preferably know a little bit about what you're doing before you just jump on head first. Just a tiny bit.
That
I
is
think it's
very much
really
true.
I think that's pretty accurate, Mark. I I didn't DM for the Caracosta West Marches, but I remember when my first year of university, I went ahead and started one with a couple of guys that I met at literally the board game society, and we realized we all played D&D. We were all dungeon masters, and there was a problem at the society where there was so many people joining the society and wanting to play stuff like D&D or Pathfinder or whatever it may be. And basically the society didn't have enough dungeon masters or people running their own game, and so it was like we pitched this idea to we were talking about it and ended up pitching this idea by pure chance, really, to the society president, who we didn't realize he was the society president. We were just playing board games with a guy at the club. And he was like, "Damn, it's a really good idea. I want to play D&D as well." And it's like, perfect. So we ended up pulling all of that together, and on that regard, it ended up just growing out of control into this crazy thing where it became almost synonymous with the society itself. And oh my god, yeah. But if you have more players than you know what to do with, don't have a consistent schedule, and you want to learn D&D stuff, West Marches is a good it's a good thing.
Yeah.
That it is. Or
I have-
if you have a couple of DM friends and you wanna, do something together. Sometimes you just have a group of people that really like to DM, and maybe you don't have really a lot of players, and then you start looking, and boom, there you got something.
Gabe, seeing as you are a resident player more than Jim, I actually have a bit of a different question for you if you're willing to answer it.
Yeah, sure.
Because
Sweat.
instead of having to instead of writing why you would be running one, I want to ask you, why would you consider joining one? Everyone else can answer this as well, but seeing as you're definitely the player that joined us more than created it with us, why would you
Mhm.
join that? Why would you consider joining one?
The reason why I specifically joined Caracosta was for availability. Specifically, new players in the D&D place don't know how to join a campaign. You usually maybe see some Reddit posts, maybe you go to Roll20, but it's tough. Roll20 posts, they usually have, as Amber mentioned before, 5, 4, maybe 3 spots per game. Sometimes not all games are what you like. Maybe you like something more sci-fi, maybe you like more low magic. People have tastes. West Marches are great because of the large amount of players that they can host. So you're not gonna run out of luck in trying to look to find one, because they're not gonna run out of spots anytime soon, unless they are very old, of course. I joined Caracosta because I attempted to join quite a handful of campaigns before, but I didn't have a lot of luck. Some had a lot of requests, and thus they had to filter through the experience level of the players, which is also an issue. Many DMs favor more veteran players, while West Marches kind of welcome whoever comes, because, as Mark said, there are different players with different skills, different DMs with different levels of skills. And so I found out the West Marches was the good way to go. They had enough spots, they had enough DMs, and it didn't take enough of my schedule of every week that I'd have to say, sorry, I can't, because I'm too busy. Instead, in OS Marches, you could just play whenever you feel like it, whenever you are down for a late night session, or even in the evening or morning, and you're not going to be, well, left out.
Yeah, I think that is definitely good, and like Lupus is basically like be in the conversation with us through our Twitch chat. Other reasons I think are pretty good is you get to meet and bond with a lot of different people. One thing I personally also experience as a D&D player is I very consistently play with almost the same group of people in each game I play. Uh, Now I sometimes get sick of that. That sounds really mean. I want to learn
Tired.
how. No, but I want to learn how new people play the game, and I think West Marches are definitely a place where you'll experience the great, the good, and the bad, and some individual players that you'd really rather have never met. But
That is very true. Yeah, you can meet a lot of people that maybe know more about you of D&D that can teach you new things, and you can also teach other people new things, maybe those that are newer than you. And thus you can pretty much enlarge your circle of friends and acquaintances that play D&D, and from the West Marches then spout out new opportunities for new games like Arconas.
yeah, I think what a lot of these reasons are good reasons why to join and why to start. Well, if once you've figured that out, I think all of us as DMs can pretty consistently agree you got to figure out what your setting slash playstyle is of your West Marches. And then people can interrupt me if they'd like, but I think that is pretty much the first thing you need to do. And even what we did
The
as
theme.
the theme, yeah, basically like the setting and the playstyle, exploration. Like what I feel like exploration is a pretty vague term, but like the lights in the dark.
I and on just if we're touching on the word exploration, I just want to say that fucking 5th edition, the word exploration is really just unfortunate. I really don't like the way D&D does exploration at all, and
agree.
I wish there was a better way.
I agree. Yeah. I think what I agree most is even if you want to provide that as a DM, Wizards of the Coast does not give you the tools to do it.
It's
But
yeah, there's just so many
But we will.
ways.
yeah, but third party is your biggest friend.
Fortunately, you have to do a lot of tweaking and fiddling and have like a lot of amendments I feel in place to be able to make exploration more meaningful, because there are so many aspects that are in place to make exploration meaningless in the game. So many abilities, spells, backgrounds, even items that just entirely nullify the kind of like wonder of stumbling across something new.
Yeah.
To the idea that we are lost in the wilderness and we truly have no sense of where we are, and in this strange place we find something new and magical. The sense of adventure is totally lost in where do I even begin? Like blanking on names of movie. Road to El Dorado, for example, totally falls apart the moment they know where they are. There isn't a call to adventure per se, but it's more, oh shit, we found something. And the entire movie is pretty much a fallout of, oh shit, we found something. The moment it's like, know where we are.
To quickly pull it back, because I'm going to jump in on that a little bit. To quickly pull it back, what I do think is that West Marches do provide almost the best way for exploration to be a thing. And the reason why I want to say that is, again, I agree with a lot of what White said. D&D is making exploration useless. Like your ranger that is specialized in finding the way, yeah, you're never gonna have to roll or do anything with it because your ability just says you find the way. But to bring it back, and what exemplifies West Marches is that the sense of finding out the unknown and the getting in there, finding things that no other person has seen before, I do think is pretty supported by the West Marches style of gameplay, where it is all about finding these new things, all about exploring. Uh, but yeah, I do agree with you to most in that sense of exploring is limited. But to pull it back, I think the first thing you need to start with is setting the theme and the play style of the campaign. And like I said, I think we can all agree about that. So I wanted to be a bit more. What do you think is your favorite theme slash style you could do a West Marches in? Because we have some. I don't think we all have experience with a lot, but is it like exploration, or is it the standard adventurers guild, or is it like we're a group of organization doing quests throughout a well-known world? What do you think you would prefer as either a player or a DM?
I think you could also run it in a city.
Yeah,
Like big,
things
like
like
metropolitan kind of city.
Or dungeon.
yeah, or dungeon.
Or a fucking huge dungeon. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
this was mostly
what?
examples, but this was mostly examples. But yeah, what in that area would you like? Like, what would you prefer as a DM? Because again, these are simple things we all agree on. So I wanted to spice it up a bit and ask you, or as a player for Gabe. I don't know where I have to point for Gabe, but I think there for me.
No.
Yeah.
For me, I think that like I have a personal preference. I think I would really like to run. I mean, I'm already planning it, but like I would really like to run like a huge dungeon, like 80s style dungeon crawl with like many people going in, maybe not so many people coming out. XP through looting, finding out all the different like things that happened in this place. I would also really like to run like a more grim dark one, maybe. No, neutral dark. We'll say neutral dark because grim dark is a little bit too sad for everyone. But we'll say like neutral dark, in like a low magic setting. There's a lot of, sticks and stones, magic not so well accepted, maybe a new continent. But I think overall the classic we're an adventurers guild, this is a new region, unexplored, untamed lands, gives the other dungeon masters, as a group, you have a lot more to work with. You can go pretty much anywhere with this. You can go from, there's some civilized places way over yonder if you go east marching instead of west. But there's
Instant
also
retirement of your character.
Of course.
instantly retires as I walk into the horizon, and they're like, "Wait, I wasn't supposed to go east." No, you never look back.
Travis to Valinor
But
disappears.
you can explore just so much. It might not be civilized by humans, but they may once have been. So you can have civilizations dating back 1,000 years, 2,000 years. It can have been multiple, civilizations that have been in a place, and
Ancient
they have been
empires.
wiped out for some reason. Maybe you're next. Why are these people no longer here? And I think that as a player as well, being one of the first people to get into a place and like go and find things that nobody is like laid their eyes upon and getting to loot that sweet loot, I think that's just like a good feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally
Yeah.
agreed.
I agree. And to build on it, I 100% think that exploration slash new world is the best for a beginning West Marches. If this is your first West Marches, that's your setting because it's free, it's nice, it's you can do with it whatever you'd like. Um, but personally, what I recently started getting interested in is I think it'd be cool to have a massive, pretty big West Marches based on faction play. And with that, I mean there's, let's say, 4 guilds in a city, and a player belongs to each of those guilds, and they're doing quests basically throughout the world to vie for power. And then you have that interaction. I think that'd be cool if done really well. Again, I haven't thought about it too much, but I think that'd be really interesting. Maybe even in that grim dark setting where you have a lot of more espionage, more than people saying, I'm scrying that motherfucker.
Mm.
But like I think
Yeah.
in that neutral dark setting would make it super interesting. It create a dynamic in the West Marches itself that is kind of natural instead of a DM basically having to force an event to happen so that there's a change in things. So I think that would be really cool to do.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Mark. I think one of the late stage West Marches problems is the fact that one, life is cheap. Life tends to be quite cheap. Players do die a fair bit amount as players are learning. Dungeon masters are also learning. Not every player is super experienced. Not every dungeon master is super experienced. Not everyone has super optimized build, and not every encounter is designed to be winnable. Okay, might cut out. Sometimes intentionally, which is not. Sometimes unintentionally, which is just rookie mistake or classic mistake, depending on
Or dices,
or the
Or
dice.
die.
Sometimes like a skeleton rolls 3 crits in a row, and you're now looking at 3 dead players, and it's like,
Yep.
how? Or like sometimes a player decides, you know what? I know the monster just grabbed me and dunked me into the lava, and I jumped out, and I somehow survived that by like the sheer luck. But I'm gonna keep fighting him in melee.
On
Yeah.
second
Does
hand,
it
I will
again.
fight that solar T-Rex. Why not?
Yeah, it's sometimes it's like goblin pushes you into a pit, you take 1,000,000 damage, you get out the pit, the goblin pushes you back. It's
Yep.
like you could have moved away. Or it's like, yeah, maybe don't put like it's like, oh, but this monster's like only this CR. These players should be able to deal with it. Have you read the abilities, my guy? You think this is a monster of that CR? I don't think so.
CR, man.
Yeah, exactly, and that's another thing. Like sometimes the game doesn't make it easy on people. But yeah,
Mhm.
just going back to what I was saying, one of the late West March's problems is the fact that it becomes, for some players' viewpoint, I need to win. And I need to put together a character build, or I need to put my character in such a position that I have the most amount of advantages, that I have the most amount of loot, that I have the most amount of benefit out of any given scenario, so that I can win. And what this ends up leading to is scenarios where dungeon masters feel players paint them in antagonistic lights, and either they go two directions with this. One, fine, I'll be the villain,
I'll beat the fuck out
or
of you. So.
I'll be the villain. Let's go. Or they go the other route where it's like, rest. No one likes
6
me. No
burnouts in a
one.
row. What?
Just dungeon masters just burn out. That like, no one cares. No one likes me. Blah blah blah. I'm bad at this.
I
Imposter
feel like I've been in
syndrome.
both of these roles. Also,
Yeah.
Only
don't
one.
play to win, guys, because the dungeon master always wins, and like
Oh yeah.
we don't
Yeah.
we don't winning doesn't matter to most of us unless you're like a shitty dungeon master. We've had those as well, the
We're gonna
I
talk
need
about
to
that.
win.
Mhm.
I need
Yeah.
to win. I am I am in control here. But
Yeah.
generally speaking, dungeon masters want you guys to win, but it's not satisfying if you like there if you have such a low chance or almost like no chance of failing, then your win is not worth anything,
Yeah.
honestly.
And it isn't
And
entertaining for the Dungeon Master either. But just going back to the faction play, I think that at the end of once you get really late into West Marches, and there's a lot of players that have this opinion because they've been playing for their characters for what 12 levels, and depending on how you're doing leveling up, that could be years of like gameplay to get their character up to that particular level. And when players have lost so many characters, they kind of become a little desensitized almost to it, to
Yeah.
the point where it's like it's us versus them, Tony.
Mm-hmm.
Us versus them, and we'll do whatever we can, and so it results in less satisfying like player to player interactions because players are always on the same team. There's never any conflict of interest. Everyone is always roughly the same alignment. They're either the I can do whatever I want alignment or the I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. Lol, chaos doesn't matter. I'm good.
Yeah, it's definitely why I am interested in if I ever do a West Marches again. I feel like I want that, like some amount of faction play, so there's different groups of players. But I would still have the DMs shuffle through so that they experience all factions.
Mhm.
I know I've asked many. Ferris, Gabe, anything you'd like to add? What would you like to do? What is like to host, play?
Wait for you, Ferris, because I don't have a cam. Can't send visual signals.
Wow, I see. In any, I mean, no, I think, yeah, I like the whole exploration part. As long as you make up or get some nice third party things for the exploration, because first party doesn't really have much for that, as we said before. Um, and just just exploring new places. You don't really know what the fuck you're gonna find. Even as a DM, you won't really know what you're gonna find, or rather, what I suppose the players are gonna find at times, especially if you use a lot of random tables and whatnot. But I do, as a player, the whole faction thing sounds very interesting. I don't know if I would like to run it myself, but definitely play. I think it sounds really interesting. Just having to, divvy up the players, and then they sort of play off each other, almost in that sense, and that creates situations. I think at one point we talked about, we're like, oh yeah, if we're ever doing Caracosta 2, we should totally have two camps on the same
Yeah.
place.
I
And
was
they,
literally thinking you should do like a Harry Potter quiz, which camp are you gonna end up in?
yeah, yeah,
I
like,
I personally think if we now do it, you should have three. Well, the reason why three is because if you do two, it's gonna be very
Split.
conflictual. Like
Yeah.
it's always gonna be conflict. Like the moment they're gonna make up, it's gone. The two factions are gone. That's why I feel like more than two is the best line, personally.
I agree.
3 is
I feel
good.
like
3 or 4.
splitting players though might cause not a problem, but there is a little issue that I've seen many times when people are put in front of a choice. Not exactly objectively, but many people used to think that one is better than the other. And so sometimes you maybe have these 2 3 factions, and suddenly 3/4 of your players want to join a single one, and the other two factions maybe have a different flavor that not many people enjoy. And then you encounter the problem of having to split people into places they maybe don't want to go, or maybe factions they don't want to be part of. So I think it's a really, really good thing to do if it is well executed, in the sense that both the DMs put effort to trying to make it appealing to other people, besides making it different from other factions, but also the right kind of players that wouldn't just go for the same thing because it's just better than the others. I think that is lovely. Personally, I would like to play DM as well, but I'd love to play in these kind of systems. One thing that I really loved about Caracosta in the middle times was building. As the camp
hell
sort of expanded and we started building outposts and things, the thought of an unexplored island becoming maybe a huge settlement, maybe a city or an empire or different cities. I would love for my character to be together with others, like the founders of a whole city. That the whole thought of just expanding and building new things, constructing where there was nothing before, kind of landscaping a little bit. It really gives me a satisfying feeling when, after you beat that Hydra or you beat those trolls that infested the place you wanted to sort of build to, you finally managed to, and now you have a sign of your victory that will last there for a long time.
Yeah. I agree. I do think if you ever do it like that, D&D 5e is not the system you want to use. There's some good third-party supplements for base building and all that, but I don't think even those supplements are still very much hampered by the design of 5e. I haven't looked in Worlds with that numbers, but I feel like that might be the system you want to use. Uh, for that type because it's very into making factions, building things, and all that. For those of you that don't know, Stars Without Numbers is the original, and the creator made Worlds Without Numbers, basically fantasy version of Stars Without Numbers. But to pull it back, because otherwise we're going to be stuck on this for a long time. The next thing that I want to say after this subject, or the next thing that I want to say that ends this subject, is what do beginner DMs have to look out for when they're starting a West Marches? And personally, I'd like to start, not because I experienced this, but I did this as a player to Amber, and Amber hated me for it. And that is, like, have a good look through the spell list, and definitely write down which spells you do not want to have involved in your game, because some spells, frankly, can ruin encounters. You have to discuss this with all your DMs, of course. Everyone needs to be on the same page. But to give you an example, I played Eladar, at that point I think level 14 druid.
Everyone hated Eladar. Just so you think, it wasn't
some
just DMs.
some
No.
people
players
like
as well.
Eladar.
Trying to ruin my Revivify economy with his resurrection, that was a little bit ridiculous.
But basically, Eladar had polymorph, and Eladar pretty proactively used polymorph on like big guys. Just be like,
I turn you into a snail. Now slither
Yeah,
Plant
away.
growth. I see you, plant growth.
I didn't
That was
use
Jarix.
I didn't use
That
plant
was
growth.
Jarix's
all the-
Fey Warlock casting plant growth, and now suddenly you can only move 5 feet around with double dashes at the backside.
I don't know what it is, but all the spells that I hate the most are on the druid spell list. It's always those filthy fucking druids.
Delete
Their
druids.
polymorph, their plant growth, their fucking what is the berries that they don't have to
berry,
eat anything or
yeah.
drink anything. It also heals them. It's only like a first level slot, and then you have the healing spirit because that never
Yeah.
officially got fixed either. So like
Start running, boys.
that-
10 rounds of
spit on the-
D6s.
just ban the druid class and the
course.
entire druid
Wow.
spell list, and you'll
I mean,
have a
like
much
you say
better
that
time.
you say that as a joke, but then when we think about character builds that became problems, it's also druids.
Bear
It's
bear.
always druids.
But I don't fully agree, but it is something like look at what you don't want in your game. I know a lot of, if you look at TikTok and YouTube and all that stuff, people are like, oh, if you ban things, you're a bad DM. Don't listen to that. Ban things you do not want to
Yep.
deal with.
Like your
You should.
players. And your players if you want.
I mean,
Yeah.
you should obviously think over, like, because, while Amber is saying, oh man, fuck druid spells, it's like, yeah, if you're gonna ban an entire class, you should think about it, of course. But, otherwise, yeah, if you don't like a particular spell or a particular subclass, then either talk with someone about it or have a think and like, okay, well, if I remove this, then these things are still here, and that should be fine. And just do it. As Mark said, don't listen to TikTok where they say, yeah, you're awful if you ban things. Like we, for example, without going off on too big of a tangent, I mean, we banned some like basic stuff like feats. It was like
Lucky.
which DM likes to have like a Grey Weapon Master or Sharpshooter or Elven Accuracy in a West Marches where people are notorious for min-maxing, especially if they're experienced players. And it's like, okay, yes, we ban those feats immediately. There's no discussion. And we even had, I actually remember there was a player who came in, because we had the looking for player thing up on Roll20, because we used Roll20 back then. And, we went over applications and then invited people to the Discord and whatnot. It took him, I think, 5 minutes or less. He was like looking over rules and it's like, wow, the Sharpshooter is banned? This is fucking awful. You guys are, I don't understand. Why? And we're like,
I cannot play without this incredibly strong feat.
Literally. That was basically what he said. It was like, I can't make my character because Sharpshooter is banned. And it's like, what the fuck? And then he just left the server.
My
Yeah.
disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
I mean, yeah, like
Not to be missed.
I will say you're gonna disappoint some players, but the good ones that stay and understand what you mean are the good ones.
Exactly.
And it's normal to disappoint 1 out of 60 people or 2 or 3,
Yeah.
and there's always gonna come new players.
One thing I want to add is one thing you always do is what we used to do is put somewhere in your rules that they're going to have to reply with a certain word in their final thing, so that you can make sure that they've actually read the rules.
Yeah,
Indeed.
Nothing
we
worse than having to, be on a good day, you have to check over 10 new character sheets and you just see that people, haven't read the rules and they're just
Oh
like
yes, I
making
rolled all
fun of
18s
the
for my
character.
stats. You
No,
should.
because we don't use rolling. You would know that if you read the rules. We use we use point by.
Mhm.
Anyway, guys, have some soup.
Soup,
yeah have
indeed.
some soup.
Soup time.
Oh,
I got my soup ready.
Yeah,
nice.
no, but like anything, I won't say anything you guys have an opinion on, but I want to say, yeah, definitely just set your boundaries and be prepared to have to deal with things that you're not comfortable with.
Mhm.
There's gonna be
Yes.
moments, especially if you, like we did, if you recruit DMs from Roll20 or from online, there's gonna be some people that are gonna make you feel like shit. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying this to make you be scared of West Marches or doing anything like that. I would say I'm at this point a rather experienced DM. That West Marches, someone said something to me that just destroyed me, and I don't know why, but that's going to
Oh,
happen. Yeah,
yeah,
people will know
no,
what I mean.
I remember.
But that's going to happen, and be prepared to deal with that before you start. So make sure you're okay to deal with those things before you even start a West
Mhm.
Marches. But
Exactly.
I'm gonna move away from starting West Marches because we've been on it for an hour, and
Mhm.
that was the
Yes.
first point.
There
um,
was a question
yeah.
in the chat. Do you
Oh yeah.
think? Have you seen the question? I don't know if we can
It's
squeeze it in
pretty
here. Or
long.
if
Yeah,
it's.
just ask. Yeah, it's.
Do you think we
I
can squeeze it in here?
Yeah, we don't have too much. Like we're gonna go over
That's not like.
resources next, and then
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
our
So like this,
experiences.
we can just
So
squeeze it in here. I can
yeah.
even tie it in with my resources. Okay.
Mhm.
So here's a question from the chat from Orko Markio. He was in our West Marches, by the way. I miss you. I remember you. Ahem. Question for anyone. I'm preparing a sandbox campaign where there is a big area that is a no-go zone with monsters after a magical calamity, and factions are containing it, but also exploring it and competing for resources. Basically, imagine 5e, of the game Stalker. I love sandboxes, but it's easy to make them feel impersonal since they focus more on tables than on a well-crafted location and storylines. Do you have any ideas on keeping a sandbox campaign feel alive? I run a sandbox campaign for nearly 3 years now on this channel. Um, my players can do essentially whatever they want to. They can choose to go wherever they want to. And what I like to do is before they enter an area, I like to compile a little list. I just say, okay, this and this and this is here. And does this tie into any ideas that I have right now? No, okay. Can I maybe make something else up? I basically either use there's a lot of third party content out there. I basically take like an existing like adventure or something or like a little one shot from somewhere and I say, okay, I can put this little story here and that will already quickly make things feel more alive because there's people involved, there's like a little storyline involved, and maybe in some way it like attaches in some way to like another thing that is over in like a different place, a little bit further up the road that they, can then go to if they so choose. But basically, even though it's a sandbox, it doesn't need, it doesn't mean that it cannot be a story and part of like a larger storyline. What I like to do is just go from adventure to adventure to adventure, and my players choose if they want to go on these little adventures. And I definitely don't begin fleshing out anything like big until they have told me before, like we want to go do this thing, because nobody hates it more, than writing the whole day on this like really great encounter or this really great story and making this map and everything, and then the players say, well, actually we are not interested in doing that
Uh-huh.
at all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, that's never
Yeah.
happened.
yes.
No. I mean, to jump in there with Calamica, because Amber, of course, hosts Arcona Scouts. With Calamica, I do is sort of it's very open. It's relatively sandboxy, but I don't provide the players like a D100 table of options when they're exploring. I give them 6, and all of them are a little bit thought out. well, actually, it's a lie. I give them 5. 6 is literally it says nothing. They know that. Tony said they know that.
Oh,
but,
no.
You
No, but
told them.
I give them 5 options of what might happen when they explore. Like sometimes it's on an already explored island, it's an encounter table, but sometimes it's, especially now, don't say it too hard. They haven't experienced it yet, and Tony sits right there. He's going to hear me. But basically, that's going to provide 5 types of islands they might find in their exploration on their journey if they do find an island. But yeah, being open world and sandboxy doesn't mean that there's no story. If they find a city, for example, and they haven't, like, let's say they roll a city encounter. You make a city, you build it, they roll to find it. Well, this city's been here. Then it's up to you to think, how much influence has this city had on its surroundings? Maybe why haven't they seen it before? But if they have, you can all connect it through some amount of writing. You're gonna have to put a little bit of effort into it, but then again, so do we all as GMs. But it's very, like, it sounds really cool, by the way.
It does.
Yeah.
I mean, everything. I roll on the table. My players are going to an encounter. They go and like roll. There's a corpse in the road, and then I'm like, a corpse in the road. How did they die? Roll something else on the table. Like encounter with 3 wolves. Okay, they got killed by wolves. Why did they get killed by wolves? What was this person doing here? Maybe they were a person from rolls for a random location in the area. Okay, so they were a person from this town. What were they doing? Where are they going to? Rolls for another random location. Okay, they were going there to a temple. And then in my mind, something starts to grow, and I'm like, you know what? This person was going from A to B, and they were going to deliver something, or they were going to pick up something. Maybe they carry like a note on top of them, and that's immediately like another hook for the players, that they can follow down to the next location. And this is a person. They came from somewhere. They carry a letter on their person. They had goals in life, and now they're dead. So too bad for them. But there's people there now. There's wild animals in the area. There is another place to go to, and that immediately makes you feel like there's a little bit of interaction in the world already. And you can just continue to build off of that. A lot of things can be straight up rolled off of tables, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be impersonal at all. If you just give it like that little bit of a spin or a twist that ties it into the overarching world.
Yeah.
If you say, in your case, it might be because there's like multiple factions like competing for resources. Maybe that person who was on the road got killed by wolves, right? But these wolves were like infected by something like the magical contamination, and they were actually driven out of their original home where they weren't bothering anyone by a faction who's trying to build like some secret new forwarding base that none of the other factions are aware of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it is hard to keep those things connected, and you're gonna fuck up plenty of times. You can freely admit it. I've literally had games where I said, I've written this wrong. Well, because sometimes you have a really good note taker in your games. It's literally writing everything down you said, and they literally say that's not what you said before, and you're like, yeah, I'm wrong. I didn't write that down. I'm
Yes.
sorry.
This is true.
So yeah, don't be afraid to admit your mistakes either.
But it's okay because this note-taking player, right? Sometimes my players are like, they have this like little white pinboard with the red lines connecting it, and they're putting out these theories, and I'm like, damn, that theory was a much better idea than I had for this story. I
Don't mind
guess this is what
you.
actually happened
Yeah,
now.
exactly.
Your
Yeah,
players are creative people too. They also have thoughts up in their head. We don't have to do everything alone. They can write the story for us sometimes. They
Yeah,
don't
call
have
it
to know everything.
collaborative storytelling.
Storytelling.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Big brain.
or how I say it to most places that ask about it when I'm going for a job, because it is on my like application thing. It's
Huh?
improvised theater with a group.
Hey man,
Exactly.
that's
Improvised
true.
group theater.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sounds like a cult, honestly.
it's D&D. It's been a cult since fucking 1980 and something. But to get back
Ultimately,
on
we are a
topic.
cult.
Oh, go
I
ahead.
thought it was just a cult
Go
in
ahead,
Stranger
Paris.
Things.
Oh no, I was gonna say what was said in Twitch chat. That yeah, it's indeed basically 50% like preparation and 50% improv. It's like
Yeah.
if you
Have-
especially for the thing that you actually asked about, where it's like, oh, okay, this is like a magical exclusion zone from the zone from Stalker basically, and yeah, you can just write up have some vague ideas about like, oh, okay, maybe there's a weird band of mutated whatever animals that roam around here, or oh, there's a gang of looters looking for artifacts, etc., etc. And then just have very vague ideas and just a little tidbit written down, and then you can just use that when you're actually rolling for the stuff, really, and you have some stuff prepared.
And I wanted to move on, but I quickly want to give other tip that this is how I host my Stars Without Numbers game, which is very sandboxy to the point that it is more sandbox than story at some points. But
Understand.
don't be afraid to have a session where you just sit down with your players, asking them what are they going to do next. Ask them certain things, like you can have them small downtime things or others, but just have a good conversation with what's the plan, what do you guys want in the future, and more. Communicate with them. They'll tell you what they want.
Yeah.
But
I
I
want
wanted to
more
next.
magic items. I want more power fantasy. I want
I mean,
more of everything. I
More
want
XP.
less
More.
accountability. I want less accountability. I want more responsibility. I want the freedom, more freedom to do whatever I want.
Okay,
I
I
want.
think
I think
I
we should
think
move on.
what we yes we should move on, and I think that we can have like a whole other talk and maybe get some of the other like DMs that we know, via
For
in to
world
just have a
building and
talk
stuff.
about for world building and for DMing, like just sharing tips, because some of this like goes into the sitting down with your players and talking about
Yeah.
what they want to do and the troubles that come with giving players a really wide open area to explore in, which is kind of different, like kind of the same but also very different from West March, because in West Marches we obviously say these are the parameters of the quest that you are going to do. I'm not telling them go do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
We're pretty
Um.
strict in what we do with the West
Yeah,
Marchers.
and you should be, because you're doing it with multiple people who all have to agree on the same thing. But to quickly go back, is we're gonna go on to the next topic now, called recommended resources and virtual environments. The
Hooray.
first thing I want to start off with is
Boy,
virtual
Amber, are you wearing
environments.
the shirt?
Yeah. Uh,
Can't believe you didn't do that.
yeah. But the reason that
Laundry, I spilled pasta on it.
oh no.
How long
Uh,
have you had it? Like
Um,
a week?
A week?
But there are several ways to play online, like a lot of people here know, and we can I'm gonna ask White for a bit on IRL how he does it, but like for seeing as most of us have experience in the online environment, that is where I'm gonna first start off with.
Are you sure? We should start IRL. That
Yeah,
should
you can do.
be the D&D experience. As far
I
as
mean,
You wish.
the best
yes,
D&D experience is IRL.
I agree, but
To
also
an extent, I guess.
Also, life.
yeah, life. Yeah, I agree, but life. But it's yeah. So I have picked out 3 general ways to play. You can always tell me more, but I've written down Foundry, Roll20, and a play by post in Discord or any other platform you deem viable. Um, and I want to go what you guys think of the pros and cons of each. So I'm gonna say pros of one. Just go at it if you have some ideas. I'm going to start with Foundry, um, and I start with the pros in Foundry. You can start, Amber.
I don't think Foundry is a good fit for West Marches style games.
I agree.
I love Foundry. I think Foundry has a huge amount of options. It can automate a lot of processes in your game in a very great way, but it is not the right fit for a West March style game. There is a learning curve that is just not fit for a game where you have potentially like 50 or even 100 players who all have to understand how it works.
Yeah.
There is
Yeah.
the point that you have to host it somewhere. if it's hosted on someone's computer, then other DMs don't have access to it unless a PC is on, and there's also the risk of security because people
Mhm.
are literally behind your firewall in your computer. And then, there's also hosting option online, of course, but that's limited space that you're then paying for. I guess it's an option, but I think the learning curve is just a little bit too high. And also, it's just not really necessary because West Marches, it's small, contained quests. What you need at most is like a couple of tokens and a map, really.
I want to say that was a lot of cons for a thing that I call pros, but
Mm,
Nice.
Sorry, I don't
okay.
think there's like
It's
many
true.
pros.
No, I think
Yeah,
it's
move
a,
on.
it's.
I found
I
your
think
rep
it's a
is
good.
thrown out the
Yeah,
window, so let's
yeah.
move on.
I think it's a good idea to just say both. I mean, I will say if you do it well, and I think if you buy for a large server, like an actually large server, like with the idea of doing this with possibly asking your players money. I'm not a big fan of paid DMs, but let's say you're having to host this server for $300 a month. Don't do
That's
that. What the fuck?
ridiculous. If you're
Yeah,
paying
it's ridiculous.
$300 a
I
month
know.
for a server,
I
I
know. I
will
know.
find you, and you can pay me
That will
half
kill
of
you.
that, and I will host a server for
Oh,
you.
I know, but
And I
it
will
was
do it for
just
$15 and net the rest of the money you're
it,
throwing at me.
it was just a thing. But let's say you are hosting and ask for. I think you could create a really immersive experience, but like Amber said, Foundry's complicated. I'm somewhat using it, and I like Amber puts a lot of time in figuring out Foundry works. I don't enjoy doing that, so I'm using Foundry's basics, and it's nice, it's good, it
Work.
works.
You can create an immersive experience, but then that goes against the, found or like a
Yeah.
West Marches should be like low maintenance or low
No,
effort.
Exactly.
well,
It never turns out that way,
no.
definitely not. But like you should
No.
at least have the idea in your head that it should be low maintenance.
Well, I think we all know our local foundry president has thrown it out the window. So I don't think there's much more to say.
I love you with my whole fat heart, Foundry. If you sponsor me, I will literally sell I will
But
sell
you don't mind,
everyone
basically.
yeah,
that I meet a Foundry license. I've already done so.
That's true.
true.
I sell Foundry licenses to people who don't even use it. So
Yeah. Uh,
Gabe in the background, like, yeah.
I mean,
Jose, what do you mean?
Mm,
Eh.
that is true.
I'm going to say what Amber would call a heretical word next. Roll 20, and I hate to say it, but if you have a plus account or more on Found or Roll 20, it is, I think, by far the best place to run a West Marches. Should you do it online?
pretty okay.
They sure make you pay $300 a month.
I
Yeah, they will.
I will agree that it's good, and that's what we use for Carrot Cost as an example. It's good up until a certain point where even if you're paying like a paid pro subscriber, you don't get any technical assistance because like I don't know if we ever actually figured out what was the issue because
No, I think our world just became too big.
Yeah.
They just
The-
gave us no support whatsoever.
yeah,
So
they gave no support, like multiple forum posts or threads in other posts in other threads and new threads talking with support. Never really got any proper help. But basically, at one point, Roll20 just people started having trouble loading it because there was just so much stuff there, and it's also weird in the fact that technically a lot of stuff was spread out over multiple DMs as well, like storage wise. But still, it's like no, it's just too much. And we did like multiple times of just trying to, okay, let's literally delete all of these unused maps that we're probably never going to use again. Delete them completely. Let's delete whatever sheets that we can delete as well that we're not going to use. All that stuff, but that didn't help. So in terms of if you have a lot of players, at a certain point you're probably gonna run into issues with Roll20. But otherwise, it's good, as you said,
It's really good. Yeah,
because it's just easy.
It'll do. I think
It will
is
do,
is,
yeah.
is a
I mean,
better.
For
I
West
mean,
Marches, it's easier to manage.
I think so. I think easier to do. I will say it's the best you'll get. Personally, I think it's the best you'll get for a West Marches. I have not seen any platform that would
Online.
make it better. Online, yeah, online.
Because we're about to go into my bit.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great segue.
I was going to ask for real life next. What's the pros and cons of real life? Wait, let's go.
Real life is I am sitting down with Jack, Alex, Ashley, and Jake. I don't know why 3 J's, but hey, I was in Britain. I like the J names. The good thing about being in real life is that I'm sitting down in front of you guys. We are talking, we are chatting, we can laugh, and we can do a lot of the things that online more that you can't really do as well online. You know, I'm gonna probably go out for a drink at the pub with these players. And once Alex's game, who's also running a quest that same day at the exact same time in the room next door, is done, we're gonna band together and we're all gonna go down to the pub and we're gonna talk and we're gonna laugh about whatever happened during the game. And a couple other players are also probably going to be down there, or they might jump down to say hello as well. And that is, I think, peak West March's experience as far as me doing it IRL goes. Because, like, for reference, it was at university. And so where you had a common thing to pull people together, which was the university and then the university society. And then people in the society would join up for the West Marches. You had this excuse where pretty much people would have their quest, it would be run, people would have fun, and then after the quest, people would go down to the student bar, and there were other players there, and they would ask those players, before those players got into the RP chats at all, how did your quest go? What happened? Ah, Liam made us fight a fucking Dracolich. We thought it was just a worm that was eating all these people, but actually it was just a lich. And it fucking wiped the floor with us. But Raparax, Jack's character, who is 2 levels lower than everyone else in the party, ran at it with a fucking crazy crit that just saved the day. We survived.
I have a
And-
question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And that was great. And also being able to sit around and be like, Dungeon Masters, we're going to have a small assembly. And all the Dungeon Masters would come to one table within this student bar, and we'd sit down with our drink, and then we'd just talk. CD secrets, DM secrets, plots and schemes, and what are you doing next, and how is that villain going to react to what just happened in the quest, and how did your quest go? And this talking, this narrative that develops, it just keeps everybody friends, frankly. It keeps everyone friends and it keeps people bonded together that I'm a person, you're a person, we're all people, and it helps avoid one of the problems I mentioned earlier, which is the DMs versus players, and there still will be a lot of that, but it's a lot harder to villainize the guy that you're having a beer with than it is to villainize my faceless avatar online. Hello, guy I have met on Roll20. That I don't know in real life, whose real name I don't know, whose hobbies I don't know where you live, I don't know your upbringing, I don't know your background. Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you is, because again, I have no experience with real life West Marches, so do you still run into scheduling conflicts? Because it sounds like you'll be a lot more dependent on scheduling than not.
Not really, because everybody is living within commuting distance of the university. And as a result of that, we can just say things like, hey, for example, as a DM, I will say to a particular bracket, I will take all players of level 7 and level 8 and level 9 on a quest on this day. I'd rather do the evening, or I will do it on Saturday or Sunday, let's say starting at 6 o'clock at the university building. And it's like, okay. And then people sign up if they can join, and sometimes people will put in requests because they feel like it's what their character would sign up for, and then of course not get picked because they can't. I don't know. They're doing something with their family that day or whatever it is. But because it's a West Marches, there's always enough players of a particular bracket or a rank to do it. And if there isn't, you can always shimmy the bracket a little bigger to make up for it.
I'm gonna quickly jump to the next one that I've written down, the last one, which arguably I think is the worst one, but I just think this is the worst way to experience D&D in general. I'm
Oh,
gonna get a
boy.
lot of hate for what I'm about to say, but it's play by post in like Discord or like something
I mean,
else.
I
Some
agree.
each
people
their
like play
own.
I
by
agree.
post.
But
Yeah,
Yeah.
each their
thanks.
own. Yeah, it's to each their own. I completely agree. I don't like the format.
Same.
It removes the player, like what White said. Like there's like steps, right? In real life, you see the face, or you see the face, you hear the voice, you see the people, you see the emoting. In online, sure, you might not see the face depending on
So
the
the
camera's
avatar
on or
in this
not.
case.
You see the avatar, but you still hear people emote and
Yeah.
interact and laugh with each other as people. But then play by post, I have never experienced play by post, so I
People
can't say
emoting.
too much on it. But it's literally just indeed an emote and like a text, and I don't think it's the way to experience it.
Add
I've
some
tried
reaction
play
images
by
of
post.
yourself.
Yeah, I tried play by post a few times, and I have to say, much like Mark, it's not my cup of tea. Having to wait several weeks at a time for a post that is just a wall of text, you have to read through it along with the other players, kind of like coordinate on what to do. I think it alienizes the player, or at least it did to me, from the proper experience that is D&D. Making the inside jokes, having a laughter, having a tough moment, having a difficult fight, being in a crisis at the moment gives you a lot more of an emotional stimuli than does reading a piece of text that says you're on 2 death saves, you're gonna die soon.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
it's
yeah.
it's a lot less intensive, it's a lot less active, and I can understand why people do play by post. But especially for West marches, I guess, where you already know that it's low effort and sessions don't really tie into a campaign all the time. Sometimes they're just one shot sessions or little adventures. You need that presence, that stimuli to keep people attracted, to keep interested in what you are doing. I feel like play by post doesn't really work well with this kind of setting.
No, I agree. I've never experienced play by post, but I know the gist of it, and it's again to those people that enjoy it, all the power to you. But
Yeah.
I don't think it's the right platform to experience most of what D&D has to offer.
Totally agreed.
I would agree. I mean, I haven't experienced this myself, but yeah, from what I know and what Gabe just said as an example, yeah, it's not really my cup of tea either.
Yeah. I'm gonna quickly jump because otherwise we're gonna stuck. What are some resources that players or GMs can use for their work? And I know Amber's gonna be very passionate about this, so
Yeah, so like if someone else wants to go, like go ahead, like you can go before me because otherwise I'm gonna go off. I'm gonna go off on a tangent.
Pop
No,
it off.
I think it's maybe more important for you to first go off in a tangent so that
Mhm.
other people can realize
I'll
what
just
the things have you said.
quickly say something then before Amber pops off.
Yes.
I think, and it was mentioned earlier, that it's definitely worth watching Matt Koval's video on West Marches, because I didn't know what a West Marches was until I watched that video, and it inspired me to create my own at my university and all my friends there, and it inspired Amber and Jarix and Mark
Mark, yeah.
Mhm.
to create Caracosta.
For sure. Definitely watch videos, but I think that's just a general good DM tip in general. Matthew Colville's a great DM. I say I've never seen him DM, but I know he gives very fun DM
I've watched his
tips.
streams; they're
Good
pretty
tips.
entertaining.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
But
also just an
Amber,
entertaining person. He tells stories or like even just
yeah.
it gives tips in a very entertaining way that just keeps people
Yeah.
engaged.
My only addition to this is using Incarnate. I think Incarnate is one of the best map making
Bless
tools
fucking thing.
if you can use it. It's pretty much even the free version is pretty good for something. So
It
and
is.
also if you make an Incarnate account, you can download maps that other people have made.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. And that's what we want. We want to get things from other people so that we don't have to do everything ourselves
Steal.
because it takes so much effort and so much time. and as the time goes down, you might want to start making maps yourself for everything, but eventually you realize there's not enough time in the world for you to make all the maps that you want to make. Not enough seconds in a day.
And it sounds like someone speaking from experience.
It's me.
Hmm.
I was speaking from experience. I hadn't even like put
Mhm.
down any YouTube videos or like map making services in this yet. Actually, maybe one. Okay. I put it into sections even. My first one is planning. I think that using Google Drive, the basics of Google Drive is enough to plan most of your sessions. Most of your rules can be put in here. Your things that you discuss with other DMs should be noted somewhere. You can keep it in there as well so that everybody has access to it. You can keep track of some player stuff in Excel sheets. Google Drive is the holy trinity of everything. We have personally used Discord to organize a lot of things. You can use the voice channels to play. People can post. You can post your quests in a separate channel. People can chat with each other in and out of character. You can have some role playing chats going on in one category. A lot of people do that. A lot of players are really into that. Trust. And it's also
Lupus, we
just a
know you're watching.
and it's also just a really great place to build up a community. Now, what I really like to keep in my next section, which I called playing, there I've only got one link put down here. Don't worry, we will put when the VOD goes up, I will post this entire document, in the link for the YouTube, and you can get all these links for you. But what I think is like a really great resource to keep, at your side in a tab is Donjon's 5e reference. It is basically this
Mm.
big sheet, it's laid out in different colors and buttons, but it's a big sheet that just tells you these are all the actions that you can take as a person in combat. These are the conditions that exist. It is just a really good thing to have, because sometimes you just don't get to play for an entire month and it's like, damn, how did that thing go again? Or this player is using this and this player is doing that, and like I'm not used to these conditions and these spells, or it's all in there, and it tells you like a quick reference, and it gives you also like a page number for the book, just in case if you want to read some more information about it. But it'll give you the basics of like what everything does, and that is good stuff. Now, hosting. Oh man. I will begin with a map generator. I think one of the map generator that we used was called Asgar, which is it generates this like huge world map randomized, and it also holds a kind of like couple of pretty neat little features. If you want, you can make it have like names and factions and stuff. If you click on them, it's like this is the flag for this nation. There's this many people in this nation, and this much is like humanoids, etc., etc. You can do none of it, of course, and just say this is the shape of the world, because you kind of need a place to put this thing in, and you might as well just put it out there. Quickly done.
I want to jump into that real quick. I know, Amber, you're going to mention what I'm going to say next, but that map generator is also very nicely linked with a good city generator, which is really nice to use as well. It will literally just generate the basic layout of your city, and you can just put dots on there where there's like buildings. It helps you so much. I can't draw maps. I suck at it. I can't make world maps. I can't make city maps. Use that, and you have an entire map just auto-generated for you.
Work smart,
AI,
not
man.
hard.
Work, smork, not orc.
Yes.
Exactly. I'm going to. There's like a lot of things out there, but I'm just going to put down like my favorite things in the quote unquote free section. These are like mostly the larger websites that have like multiple things, combined into one. The first one is Donjon. Donjon.
John Daskin, owner of the Damn. Yeah,
No,
sorry.
Donjon is like a great thing. It has resources for like multiple things. It's not just 5e. It's also Pathfinder. It's also 4th edition. It's also even generic fantasy, and it just has everything from random
favorite game.
encounters to random items to random crazy magic items, like a origami, like a little origami paper beholder that like shoots eye rays, and after that it like explodes. I love that thing. I will never forget
Hey,
it.
yo.
But besides that, it also has really great town generator and dungeon generator. So it like generates a map for a town or a dungeon for you, done in 5 minutes. There's also some really niche things, like there's There's a Ruby like party generator, so like it generates like a random adventuring party for you that is like, this is this person, they are haunted by a ghost from their past, and then like a little bit of stats and stuff,
What a
like
gad.
random people you run run into on the road. But it also has a feature that's called their endless dungeon, which is literally an endless dungeon that will scroll down the entire page and it will just keep going and going and going, and that's good shit.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know if you have
Thief
one. I
Guild.
can jump in if you're.
You can jump in.
Oh.
I'm not
I-
finished, Mark. I will
Yeah, I
literally never
know.
finish. Just
I
jump in
know.
with one.
One resource I really recommend, especially for if you're just wanting some fun little things, is called D&D Speak. I think that's what the website's called. It is basically a collection of Reddit posts, really, but made to look way nicer than Reddit posts. But it's basically like 100 tables of D100 things. So D100 things you find by the side of the road, D100 curses, blah, 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 blah. And they're all really interesting. Some of them are better than others, but definitely a good source of inspiration.
Yeah.
Most assuredly. In that same trend, there's also Auto Roll Generator, which also combines a lot of tables from like Reddit posts into like like a roll generator. You just say, okay, I'm looking for an NPC right now, or I'm looking for a monster. Like, it's like, oh my god, a group of gnolls is attacking the party. You click on the gnoll, and it gives you a layout of like 5 different gnolls, and it's like this gnoll has like a spotted fur and it has like a bone through its nose, and it makes sure it like spices up your encounters just a little bit, by
Gives
making
them
things
character
more
and
unique.
life.
Yeah, it gives them character, gives them life, and all it takes for you is like 5 seconds and a click. Um, One I also really like is thievesguild.cc, which again is like a larger website that holds like a bunch of different generators. You can generate NPCs or player character ideas, names for characters, loots, but also shops, like a whole bunch of shops. If you want to start a West Marches with like a starting town where people can, buy their loot and spend the money that they make adventuring, you can generate shops there. There's also some tables for harvesting creatures because it will inevitably come up that your players say, "Oh, I've just killed this huge giant crocodile. I would like to harvest it," and you're like, "What do I do now?"
What does that mean?
You're
It
that
has
new
you
TikTok
covered.
meme where it's just.
You get a tooth?
So it has a whole bunch of like explanations for this as well with creatures, and it's like, okay, this creature you could get like 600 pounds of meat and this much skin, and it will be worth this much money. But also this creature in particular, like a unicorn, might have like a horn and it has like a property that does this and this, and it's a quick little thing that's like got you covered in those in the case that you have players who literally want to use everything that they see on the road everywhere.
Say, I'm gonna steal one you've written down. I guarantee it. I'm gonna steal it because I use it a lot too, and I thought I want one to say as well again.
Uh-huh.
Use Michael Gelfie's audio tracks on YouTube. Just credit him, and they're copyright free, if I remember
Right.
correctly. And it gives very nice setting. Whether you're playing IRL and you just play it over a laptop or set a Discord bot up, they add so much atmosphere.
Yes, in a very unique way as well compared to some of the other like tracks out there. I didn't actually have that noted, but we can add it to my list. I just posted some of my like favorites out there, in terms of like generator stuff because I have a I have a folder with like 200 links just to D&D stuff throughout
Only
my
200.
campaigns.
Only.
200
Like
and growing.
200. I need this, guys, okay? Like this is
Oh,
everything is equally important.
I've got one as well. The D&D books. There you go. I got it.
It's
Imagine.
surprisingly
That goes
it's
in my paid
useful to
section.
suggest them because so many people don't read the PHP or don't read like
Facts.
basic books.
Mhm.
And
It's
you
true.
figure, if people start using third-party content in homebrew, they must already be veterans players, right? No, some people's first time is with homebrew, like mine was, and you don't realize what a PHP is until like a year later, someone explains to you that there's a base manual to play D&D, and then you're hard struck because you didn't think there was any rules.
Wait, there's rules?
Exactly.
Learn
You
the
have
rules,
to-
I
kids.
thought I could just imagine everything and within the
Yeah.
boundaries of acceptation.
I know a
Nope.
lot of you like to say rule of cool, but please at least know what the rules are before you're trying to be cool.
Exactly.
Yeah, Mark, that hit a little bit too close to home.
Hold up.
Great resource for you if you are running things on the fly. Kobold Fight Club. They were gone for a while, but
Yes.
the people from Fantasy Calendar, which is also a great resource if you want to keep actual track of calendar stuff.
Mhm.
Very unlikely in a West Marches because it's easier to run things in real time, but Kobold Fight Club allows you to just either roll a random encounter for players, you know, if you're that you put together like this level, this many players, this is a random encounter in this area, but also it allows you to like just look at the sheer like numbers, like the raw numbers. You say, okay, I want to do an encounter with like an orc tribe. I'll put this many, you know, orcs in, then this many warriors and a shaman, and then like the war chief. How bad is this? Oh, it's 5 times deadly. Maybe I should adjust it just a
Maybe you should
little bit.
keep it
You
this
know,
way.
No, they
I
can
do-
take
I
it. It's
do-
fine.
they can take it.
I do want to jump in and rebounce what White said before, what Liam said in the earlier talk. CR isn't everything, boys.
No,
Read
yeah.
what
It
Monsters
definitely
did.
isn't.
Doesn't.
I threw 2 swarms of rock grubs against my level 8 party today, and they were like screaming.
Boy, did I almost die every single round.
I assume you put the old one and not the revamped one.
Oh yeah, I totally put the old one.
Damn you. All right. My
Uh,
last
uh,
one in this section is actually the 5e loot shop.com, which is, well, I think it's just a very cute little like little generator. It basically lets you make magic items. It creates like a random treasure with some random properties, and it gives like a little bit of a sentence of like this is the history of the item, and then it also gives a picture as well. So you have the whole little stat block, you know, in case you want to do some unique things because your players are done with getting pearls of power and shit.
That's
And
true.
I have
Any,
2 things. Oh
yeah.
yes.
No, I want to ask anything else. That's what I was waiting for.
No, the only thing I have is like 2 paid for content things. I actually, if you want, like I added this one like later on the fly. If you want to do some faction-based play, I would recommend it's a book that came out a while ago. I think last year for like a charity event. It is Minsk and Boo's Journal of Villainy, which it sounds kind of strange because it has some like monster stat blocks and stuff, but it actually also holds some pretty neat examples of cities and factions and patrons. Like it gives like a faction and it says this might be a faction quest and this is how you can advance with that faction, and it could be like a pretty neat template for that sort of
I
idea
want to
because
bounce on that.
yes.
Wizards of the Coast to give me a faction book. I don't know how to do factions. You don't tell me shit.
I thought Ravnica had factions, guys.
We don't really talk about Ravnica now, do we?
What did Dragon
We
Heist
don't
has
talk
factions, guys?
about
No, God.
Anyway, this is my number 1. I ran 95% of this West Marches on the backbone of this resource. You might remember what it is. You might not remember what it is.
I know
But my
fully what it
number
is.
1 5e West Marches resource is Pathfinder 2nd edition.
Hey,
That is
Because I
true.
I'm gonna
That
join
is a
in this.
little bit illegal to
And
say.
first edition and first
Mhm.
edition.
and first edition, I used a document called Random Wilderness Events that I found on Scribd, right? It allows you Mark is already praying. 90 This is the backbone of our entire West Marches
I
campaign.
mean, yeah.
It is a table that holds little tables inside of it for generating structures and encounters for people who are up and out on the road in like a hex scroll. Fantastic resource. It references to books, and this is where the paid for part comes in, because you can get the basic PDF with like, you know, ideas on script. You can just read it there, but the paid for thing is there's also some references to books that are by the creator of this PDF, which is Raging Swan Press, and my goodness, the best books I have
Bless
ever read. These are like the most blessed books I have ever read in my life. These
They give.
PDFs,
Oh yeah.
yes,
Nope,
these
nope.
PDFs are just created for exploration. There's random encounters, there's like little things your players can see out on the road, there's big encounters, and all of it is focused around like different types of place. So you have an entire PDF that's dedicated only to Arctic, entire PDF only dedicated to caves, and then there's also an entire other branch of their PDFs which is like dungeons, and it's like, okay, this is an entire PDF that's only geared towards the floors of dungeons, the walls of dungeons, the ceilings of dungeons, the traps in dungeons, and it's just
Raging
so
Swan
much
Press.
inspiration.
You made this
MVP,
You made Caracosta possible.
literally
Yeah,
MVP,
true.
MVP Raging Swan Press. It is such a great resource, honestly. If you ever want to
Definitely
invest
be
money into
interested.
something,
Yeah.
it's that.
Be willing to invest. I don't say
Yeah.
don't be willing, but like consider investing in some of your favorite creators. I mean, I'm not gonna dance around the bush. I know that plenty of D&D players pirate like 90% of their PDFs. If you agree on something, purchase the PDF as well. Just
Yeah.
send them the money. It's worth it.
Yeah.
They put in so much effort.
Yeah.
Support them.
We're not gonna lie, like we too have done, like we too have used some pirated content, but in the end of the day, if we had extra money, we too would send it to
Yeah.
to people
I
out
mean,
there on the home brewery and stuff, because
we
we love this stuff and we would like to see more of this stuff, and the only way to do that is to make sure that these people know that their content is really appreciated.
100%.
yeah. I mean, we bought
We
like
bought several bundles and
yeah,
stuff
we bought
as well.
several bundles of stuff, and then also just when you have yeah, like some of the stuff from DM's Guild, if we're like, okay, this PDF is really fucking cool. Okay, that's
Yeah.
good
Yep.
stuff we can use. Let's just get
I'll
it.
take your entire stock.
I'll take your entire
And-
stock, exactly.
And that is now also partly where our TaleChaser funds go to, supporting creators that are good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Correct.
But yeah, I don't know if that was the last one. If anyone else has anything else to add, I think a lot of it
Otherwise,
was
we can just
spoken
we can just put it in the PDF and it'll be in the
about. Yeah,
VOD.
it will be fine.
It'll be in our
So
YouTube.
I had one the next subject, but I feel like we've said enough. I
Mhm.
have a topic called West March's do's and don'ts, but I feel like we've spoken a lot about what we
I
should
mean,
and shouldn't do.
fair enough.
I did.
Characters that are children.
Never
No, but
check. That is no at no table.
yeah.
That's
Mm,
not true. I was 17 when I joined this game.
I mean, I will say no. I'm
No,
gonna
not
jump
no.
on
players
this.
that are children. Game
Yeah.
characters.
No
That's
characters
true.
that are no characters, but I will say don't accept everyone that applies. Read their replies. Like
Yeah.
Gabe did say, it's a lot more accessible. We've had hundreds of applications
Mhm.
for our West Marches. Filter them through. You gotta ask them some questions. You gotta make sure that the people that are joining you aren't gonna stir up trouble. Stay tuned for a subject later in the evening. But just be careful with who you accept. Filter through the people. If you're doing a real life West Marches, that's a bit more difficult, I assume. You'll filter
No,
through
it's
them after
actually
they
not
play.
because we can literally go to the university and get them removed from the society, and then they
Oh
can't
yeah,
turn
yeah.
up. Like they
Society
didn't
as
do.
a whole, just
Oh yeah,
removed
no,
from
no,
society.
no. But
Yeah.
I'm more with filtering. I mean, before they join. After they join, you
yeah.
can
Oh
kick them
yeah, I
out.
mean,
Yeah.
like if they stir up shit, like we have a system in place that's based around it.
Yeah.
But we as dungeon masters don't have the control
The
Authority.
Yeah,
to
yeah,
control to basically just like reject someone. We have to take everyone, but we can be rather yeah. I mean
Yeah.
like also we can like just at the end of the day be like, okay, well I just am not gonna take this player on my quest. Like we had I think some cases where it was like I don't want to have this player at my table because they are a shit stirrer. They're just not fun to play with, and so I refuse to have them at my game. But you don't say that. You just You just subtly do it
So
by
yeah, you suddenly
Gotcha.
never picking
I
them.
don't
never get
pick
picked
them.
for these quests.
Yeah.
Wonder
I
why.
mean, some other do's that I would recommend is have a day where you're going to meet up with your other fellow DMs. I mean, from what I hear, White does that in his real life game. We had a specific day, discuss what you're going to go do next.
Yeah, that is very much
Karaoke
needed.
nights
Yeah. Set
at
up
the student bar. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but set up a way for like guys that do bad to be punished. I don't want to say be punished. That sounds fucking horrible and gross.
Flail them.
I mean,
but have a system in place that a bad player can't ruin the fun for everyone. And I don't mean bad player as in someone that's just not good at role playing, but someone's actively trying to take the fun
Yeah.
out of it.
I'll without going on a tangent, I'll quickly touch on the whole system for ban or bad or whatever. We did after, not in the beginning, but after a while when we started getting more players, we were like, okay, well, some players are you're noticing a trend of people signing up, we're accepting to the quest, they're not showing up to the fucking quest.
Yeah.
So we then just said, okay, flat out, you have three strikes. If you do that 3 times, the likelihood of you getting on a quest is, well, it's not 0, but yeah, almost. Because we always prioritized people who hadn't played this week, or I think the week before as well. We basically tried to pick people that hadn't played recently when people applied. And if you had 3 strikes and you applied, that wouldn't apply to you then, because we know that you're probably not going to show up to the quest anyway.
Yeah. I will say also like I said before, put rules in place before play. Everyone needs to know what they're signing up to, and everyone needs to have read the rules. So put a little phrase or something that will make sure that they've read the rules, so you can see that.
Fail safe of some sort.
Yeah, fail safe. Something else again, set up before, plan bans. Do make sure that every DM is on the same line. Set up a theme, set up a storyline. I'd say one of the don'ts that I personally think you shouldn't do is I don't know how to say this. One thing you shouldn't do is, well, one thing you should do is set up a good system for players to level up.
It's important.
Don't let them skyrocket through levels. And personally, I hate to say this, but one thing I think you shouldn't do is what we did, and that is allow DMs to get XP for their character by hosting
The
games.
NPCs.
And before you're like, oh, the NPC is gross. In this case, it's a little bit less gross because again, your DMPC is only playing in a game where you're not DMing. But don't let your DMs get XP, because that will just make it so that the high level characters are always the DM characters.
I disagree. I think there is a way to do it that doesn't involve like power leveling effectively DMPCs. And I call them DMPCs because it is a DM that has privy to knowledge that normal players do not, and it is being run by a DM who is trying to. They're effectively playing an NPC, but it's their only character. And it's, they play it like a PC would. So we'll just call it an NPC or a DMPC. Yes. And it leads to the kind of thing where DMs have their character and they never get to play. And so as a result, when they do play, they want to be able to play like at a level that they feel is appropriate. So in my university game, DMs have like some extra privileges. Basically, every time they run a quest, they get a token which they allocate to their DM PC character. And DMs, unlike players, can reject level ups, as well as also have a front runner cap where they can never be as high a level as the other players. And the reason why I say this, it's important that DMs feel that they can almost get something out of running in a way, because for some DMs they're not running as often, and some players can't, or some of them prefer to be players and want to run occasionally. But it's problematic when, for example, I join university a first year and then eventually I become a third year, I run several times a week, and eventually all my friends that I joined university with are several levels higher than me because I've become a DM now. And realistically, you want to be encouraging players to move from the player role to the DM role.
Yeah.
As happened with Amber, it happened with Paris, it happened with Gabe. Exception. And then there's me and Mark. Yeah.
The forever DM.
Hey, I want to play DMD. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Who's gonna be the DM?
Hmm.
Well, you suggested it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
Okay.
All
All
right.
I mean,
with
oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go
oh
on.
no, I was gonna say that. Yeah, like as you said, Liam, with the token system and whatnot. I mean, we did similar. Caracol still had the token system in place. And yeah, we also like same line of thought. It should kind of be like the DM. It should feel like they're getting something out of it. So like when they host, even if they're doing it because it's fun. But we put caps in place so like you could only get one per week, I believe. So if you host it at least once per week,
Oh yeah.
instead of like playing
That as
once
well.
per week. Yeah. So yeah, we tried to put in caps in and stuff like that, and same with the front, as you said, front runner level cap. Though I think we just said that. Actually, no, I think it's the same. Yeah, we could never level up above the highest level player, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But
We had some other rules in place, like we had something called a Joel rule, which was inspired by a guy called Joel,
Mhm.
who it happened about 3 times where he got to like last quest, he completes it, he goes from level 8 to level 9,
And then he dies.
and he dies on the
Mm.
quest,
Yep.
doesn't get a token, and loses all his tokens, goes down to level 8. It's still level 8, but 0 token. Comes in with his new character. It happened 3 times. His friends, I think they reached level 11 by the time eventually he hit level 9, and he only hit it because he died on the 4th quest, and we put in the Joel.
yeah, I
Garrick's moment.
yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I think after a while we also did something similar where we were like, okay, well, yeah,
People were dying too often.
yeah, exactly. They were dying too often at that
From with
point.
our quests, so we should change the rules.
Yeah. And we were like, okay. I think we ended up with if you would have leveled up on the quest you died on, you was it did you gain that level or did you retain like half your tokens?
Something like that.
I honestly it's been years, but it was
Yeah,
something along
something
those
like
lines.
that.
And just yeah, I mean that helps out as well.
I think
All
we can
right.
go to the next subject.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, currently, I think I want to say there's we can do the what have you learned from hosting or playing in one, or we can go to our personalized experiences, or
I
sort of
think it's
combine.
like I think we've been going for a while. I think we can just go
Yeah.
like personalized
Okay.
experiences.
So the subject I want to first talk about is one we've hinted at a while is problematic players and DMs that we've experienced and that are memorable or the problems we've had with it. And I'm not going to say that we haven't been problematic DMs. I think all of us have had moments where
Girl boss, gatekeep,
yeah,
gaslight.
I mean where
I
we've all
once added a player in general telling them to shut the fuck up after they complained after one of my quests. They fucking killed themselves and they had the audacity to call me a bitch in general, and I was like, fuck you.
One time a player called me a bitch because I called him out for not showing up to a quest.
Yeah, I wouldn't say this player was problematic, but there has been a player that sometimes there's just been players that are like have like 2 brain cells and they are actively
And that's not a lot.
no. Tony's raising his hand. Come here, Tony. I want you here. Come here. Come here. You're gonna hear this story. You're gonna hear this story. You're gonna hear it. Come here, Tony. Here's Tony.
Come
He was
here.
sleeping on the couch a bit ago.
Why
You really
can't you
woke a
just let
man
him
up
sleep?
just so you
No.
could fucking
No,
tell him.
no. I didn't wake him up. He pointed at himself.
Okay, so basically
Us.
Mark
No.
is...
No,
No,
there was a player who I'm not going to name by name. We love them. They were great. They were fun to have around. But their characters were just stupid. Like, not you, Tony, not you. Like, as an example, Tony's here, he can hear me. But as an example, this player had a blade that they found. And this blade, all it did was say kill. That's all it did. Nothing compelling. It just said kill. And what's the first thing this player does? I have to murder someone with it. Just fucking stab them. I'm like, okay, that's a bit weird. They got just thrown in jail for them. So the next, yeah, look, this is what I mean with 2 brain cells and actively not using either of them. Other moment is there's this thread in the water, very clear thing in the thread in the water. You can't really win. Don't fight it. So what does this player do? They're gonna try and dig a moat and then stand in the water. They get fucking murdered. I mean, what the fuck? Like, they had 0 brain cells. And you come across that and yeah, just you're gonna have to.
We did love them
No,
though.
yeah. We loved them. They were great. He was a great guy. But yeah.
Yeah, I remember Tony now. Was Tony the guy on the giant fucking parrot thing?
No,
No,
No.
Tony wasn't in the
that
West
was
Marches.
that was Halborn. That was
that's
Halborn
Halbjorn.
with the chicken.
That was
Halborn and the
Oh,
chicken.
that
Yeah.
was Ocas?
He had a giant
sorry.
chicken.
That
He was a
No.
cavalier fighter with a giant chicken.
Krypton.
That was no
That wasn't
Halbjorn.
Kryptonite.
That was Sir Rolf, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was,
Yeah, Sir Rolf played a character called
Yeah.
Halborn.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
I
But
remember. I remember your
yeah.
characters.
I was
I
there.
remember some other great 2 brain cell things.
Uh-huh.
In this one quest that I was in, the host was Jarix, our other member of the triad who founded the West Marches, and his favorite thing was crabs. But for this quest, he decided, damn, I can't pull crabs out again, so instead he did spiders, which are like crabs really, but like a little bit different, you know?
Yeah.
So we went to this spider cave, and we like cleared out most of them, but like, damn, it was really rough, you know? Like it was a tough battle with some of these like spiders. And so we get to this one room which has like piles of like silver pieces and stuff. And like my character, who's like, she's kind of like a leader type, you know. She came from the army before she came here. She's like, I don't think I want to do this. Let's first go clear out the rest of the dungeon, and then we can come back if we really want to loot some silver pieces. And so we go and clear out the rest of the dungeon. There's a tough boss fight at the end, like with 2 stages and stuff. Like we're pretty low level, so we're like, this was really rough. I don't think we should do this. So my character says no, and another character says no, but then there's 2 or 3 others who are like, I do really want these silver pieces. And so they go back into the into the cave and proceed to be beset upon by like 5 swarms of spiders, and they are absolutely eviscerated. My character comes back in, like after an hour of waiting, we're like, damn, it's taken them a really long time to get this money, so maybe we should go check on them. And so we go in. We find that they are dead. There are spiders all over them. We finish off the last of the spiders they didn't manage to kill, and we take the money, the bodies, and the loot. It turns out that they killed themselves over like 20 gold. I think in total it was like 200 silver pieces or something.
Yeah.
So like 20
Yeah.
gold is what they killed themselves for. And we're like, well, I guess that's what you get,
Rough,
you know?
buddy.
That's rough, buddy.
I
That's
will-
what you get, I guess.
I think because I think we're going a bit the wrong way. I'm gonna finish this up as I think the way to me you should be dealing with problematic players and DMs is first to discuss with them, talk to them. They're people, you know, talk to them, do it.
No.
And if they don't
I only
listen,
girl boss and gatekeep my players.
No,
and if
don't do
they
that.
don't listen, give them strikes until you kick them out. I mean, I think we can unanimously say the name of
Unanimously.
that one. Say the name of one DM that tried to join us that we all despise. We're not gonna do it, but we've had DMs that really
His name is
ruined this.
Aaron, and he's a DM with 17 years of experience. But by now, he must have at least 19 or 20 years of experience. So
Yeah.
honestly, like he's better than all of us combined.
Yeah. It is.
He just did everything out of the rules, but find people you can trust. And the reason why I'm skipping over this is because I want to get to this point where I think everyone can have a really good talk about what they experienced, and that is, what is the best and worst moment you've experienced in the West Marches?
Oh.
As a DM or as a player?
Your
You're not
choice.
a DM.
Okay. Yo, then you don't need to have me like that.
Your
I did my
choice.
part.
And I feel like, White, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. Something immediately came to mind. I will go DM worst moment of a West Marches.
No.
which is naturally always great. It's just I feel like it has to be done. Or basically what happened was there was an event where players basically that had been, I think, basically worked on for over a year. They'd been working up this bad guy. The players had basically released this pharaoh out of like a tomb, and basically what ended up happening was they got really upset because how do I explain? Consequences of actions. So they got really upset because they released this pharaoh from a tomb, and then the pharaoh was naturally like, "Hi, yeah, so I killed the first adventuring party you send into my pyramid to loot my shit." And then they go, "Fuck, this guy's bad news. Let's just leave him alone."
Wait, that's illegal.
So they leave him alone. He just pretty much chills and bothers them. With like he sends out, monsters and basically just does his thing. They send some more people in there, and every group they like send inside, like just doesn't come out. Frankly, it's just the best way to put it. The group doesn't come out, and after about a year where like the baddie has had like a lot of time to kind of like build up strength, he decides that, damn, these adventurers are just a pain in the ass, so I'm going to do what I do as a conqueror, and I'm just going to destroy their town. So he turns up, he does his like whole like biblical plague thing where he sends plague, he sends famine onto them, and like basically you can imagine it as like an event, farmers are complaining, people in the city are having a rough time. Every quest the players go on, they are basically reminded that there is a pervasive threat. There's a famine going on, there's a drought going on, there's like basically signs of this bad guy. And eventually what ends up happening is that the big conflict happens, and they lose. No, sorry, they don't lose. The bad guy loses, and it's like, okay, cool, that's done. But in the lead up to them eventually pulling their finger out and like just going as a big group, as a big team to kill him, what happens is we have a complaints form where basically players can go and list their complaints about various things, and it's meant to be anonymized and blah blah blah. Well, players basically just started using that as a way to directly attack people and dungeon masters, and basically the entire team got so just sad and depressed as a result of effectively cyberbullying. Anonymous cyberbullying that like the team didn't want to run any quests for anything, and we didn't even want to do the event. And as the DM that had spent pretty much months of their time putting together the all the content and all the work needed to like effectively run this big like several multiplayer event, doing all the quests, doing all the build up for the plot, making sure everything was in place. It was heart-wrenching, and is the reason why many DMs at that time looked at the player base literally like ungrateful, moody children that were unworthy of the time and effort that was being put in for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I can definitely see that.
Yeah, I know it's a bit
Recognizable.
long-winded, but like,
Yeah, no, it's
definitely some unprocessed feelings there. But
I guess I'd like to pull out two worst moments. One is for me as a person, and that was when I was called out. I don't even want to say it was super unjustified. I'm pretty resistant against being called out. I'm pretty confident as a human being, but this was a quest where I put the party up against a local threat that I called the Shepherd Druid. He was basically a
Oh
druid
boy.
that summoned fucking dinosaurs and be like,
Oh
"Let
boy.
go." He was literally a circle of a Shepherd Druid of like level 7, and the party was like what, 4 level 4s? I think it was like 4 level 4s.
I believe
Uh,
so, yeah.
and it should have gone fine if they played it well, but they didn't. They didn't play it well at all. They just fucked around. This was with the player that had 2 brain cells and didn't want to use either of them. I very much
They
remember this.
really didn't, man.
So this went wrong. So the big bad guy captured them, like all of them at 1 HP, and this was for one player was their first quest, which was really unfortunate. Um, but then they start antagonizing this guy, and this guy's like, "I don't give a fuck. If you do this again, I'll murder one of you." So they did it again, and he murdered. He literally, I rolled a dice, and he murders the 2 brain cells character, and I felt kind of bad, so I basically did a little resurrection thing. That because he was a powerful druid, and so it was like, oh, he has a resurrection thing. It's gonna be like a little curse, something that's gonna spread. Gonna make it worse. But he could only do that once. He only had the spell slots to do it once, because he only had 2 3rd-level spell slots, and he already used one for conjure animals. So he used the second one to do that, and then the other player decided to slap him in the face. The one that just came right after he did that. So I've realized I'm playing this guy as someone who doesn't take shit. So he's like, okay, I
I will
just
murder
showed you
you
what
now.
happens. I will murder you. And then she said, do it. So he's just like dead. And he
Okay.
couldn't revive again. So I'm like, okay, I go out. And this player, I will say, after the quest, they did it very politely. And I don't know why it hit as hard as it did, but it hit really hard. Is they showed their discontent with what I did, and they said, "Oh, you're showing favoritism and all that." And I mean that hurt. I mean, like I wasn't trying to show favoritism, but that's just the situation how it went. And they kind of called me out on my faults, and that felt really bad. That's pretty much one of the worst moments that I've experienced. And I think the second worst moment as a GM that didn't really affect me as a player. I have many bad moments that I've did, but I think, for example, the Hydra that went really wrong, but that was just because I made a mistake. The worst thing that I introduced, I'd say, and I think it's the same time as the best thing, is the Chain Warden, which is the guy
He
that
killed
murdered.
so many
He
people.
killed so many people, and I really want to argue is 90% of his
I don't even
skills.
know what he was at
He
the
was
end
a
of the
chain
day.
devil, right?
He was a chain devil, but
He was a chain
underwater.
devil.
He was a chain devil, but just underwater.
Yeah.
That was all he was. He was bound to like a ship in the ocean because we set out that the ocean they could delve into and they could get rid of the chain warden. But I introduced him and I thought it was a really cool concept. And honestly, I still think it was a really cool concept. I just didn't factor in how stupid 90% of the player base was. Like Gabe said, he killed a lot of people. That's correct. 90% of them were arguably their own fault.
A lot of people kill themselves to him. We have to change a little bit. Maybe some people know the stat block of a chain devil. It's not too bad. Once you have like a party of level 11 people, it's not really hard to take him down. Problem is, when that chain devil lives underwater, then you start playing with suffocation rules that you can't cast spells. Then if you get dragged down, things begin, to complicate. People didn't really factor in that thing, and a lot of people either willingly committed suicide by just walking into the water and disappearing forever, or tried to lure him onto land, like we explained before, and miserably failed at that attempt as well, because this guy we discovered could turn into mist. And it would, make everything even more complicated now, because he could just flee, he can just come in and drown you, or do whatever he wants. The thing is, it was fine because it didn't it didn't pursue people on land. If you stood away from the sea, away from the water, it wouldn't try to kill you. I think only one time it
It-
went into our encampment and we had to fight him off.
Yeah,
because of mist.
because of mist.
Because of mist.
He
Was
moved
it-
through the mist.
Yeah, and he was
Literally.
like, "Oh,
Water.
cool." He's like, "Cool, water." Yeah, I mean, this
Free water, I'll
Like
take it,
staying
yeah.
inside in your house, you
Yeah.
know.
I live in your
Literally.
walls. I live in your walls. I live in your
Literally.
walls.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
honestly, it was all good, and then just players decided to do all the stupid things that, like, literally some of them were like, literally like, oh, I see him standing there. He literally appeared to people in the middle of the night. If they got too close, he would physically appear. He would show that he's there,
Mhm.
and then someone's just like, I'm gonna move up to him.
It's like that level 999 boss that you see at the starting area that says you cannot go here, but you go there anyways.
Yeah. Another thing about West Marches is that players generally are, as I've said before, they're making builds, and when they're making builds, they're not making characters, and they love
Toss them away.
to be able to see, like, oh yeah, my build is stronger and better than your build, or I am the guy that killed the warden. Yeah, that guy that killed 300 people, and everyone wants to be that guy.
That's true.
Yep.
Yeah. Those are my two moments. I honestly still think Warden is my best moment and worst moment combined
Mhm.
because I just didn't know how dumb the
Remember the
player base would
cataprism
be.
arc? Remember the
I mean,
cataprism?
yeah, but like those were mistakes. Like those were mistakes. Like yeah, that was stupid. But like I created an entire situation, like a boss. Like that was an encounter, but I created an entire boss that just ruined lives
It
because
did.
they were dumb.
Mm.
Yeah, I did.
Um,
All right.
moments. I don't really have many worst moments, I guess. As for best moments, I'll just go over quickly, I guess. Best player moment, in a sense, would be, well, Amber put together a pretty interesting place. Well, she looks very concerned. It was a shadow ziggurat that had obviously an outside and then multiple levels down below. And I went on with my character. I went on, I think, 3 or 4 quests in total surrounding this ziggurat. I missed out on the lust layer, which I heard that people had quite a fun time with that because it was.
I missed all of it, my guy. Only first session. That
Fair,
was painful.
fair enough. But no, that's like,
I went on a few of them.
yeah,
It's fun.
it's a really, really enjoyable, just enjoyable quest, enjoyable location, and well put together. And yeah, just had a lot of fun as a player there. As for best DM moment, probably when I ran my first dungeon in Caracosta, which was with
The
what?
infamous lore mage.
Yeah,
Or the clockwork
Alchemical
dungeon
casting.
yes,
of Alfric Selter.
exactly. I'm glad you remember the name.
Int
Nice.
necrotic
It's
fireball, man.
yeah. It was like I had run a couple.
Alchemical casting.
Yeah, I had run a couple of quests like at that point, obviously, and then we had rolled up as we did like something random. I think it was a ruined tower with, and it specifically mentioned it had a locked cellar door in this table. So I'm like, okay, sure. And yeah, they just couldn't get it open, and I was like, okay, well, let's just say it's an arcane lock then, and they were too low level to have anything to deal with it. So this location obviously persisted on the map, and then since I rolled it up on a session I hosted, I was like, okay, does anyone mind if I just make a dungeon under here? And like, no, sure, go for it. And then I made a dungeon, my first dungeon, really nice. This Alfric Seltir. He was, instead of going for immortality the normal route of
Baby man route.
yeah, the baby man route of turning himself into a lich for something, he decided, you know what, can I not just put my fucking soul into like a construct? Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. And
Ultron.
I mean, yeah, not really, but sort of, maybe, possibly. I don't think Age of Ultron was out at this point. Anyway, he managed to put himself or his soul into a Warforged body after many experiments. Slight issue though. the original inhabitant of this Warforged body was still trapped in there as well. So yeah, I made a dungeon. It was fun. I look at some of the players who were there, like for example Amber. I hope she had fun. I did varied encounters. There was like a library with living books and shit. There was constructs, going around on patrol. Had some skill challenges, all of that stuff. And then the boss itself, as Liam pointed out, is a lore wizard. So immediately as the encounter starts, when they come into
For
like
reference, the lore wizard, Unearthed Arcana had just come out, and so we were all harping on how fucking incredibly overpowered it was relative to the content at the time. And then Faris was like,
Let's try him out.
yeah, why not?
Chemical casting!
Yeah.
I cast a 9th level magic missile and you take 1d4 plus 9 24 times!
Well, it wasn't quite that bad, but yes, almost. But no, it's like they come into the quote unquote boss room, and he I don't even think he quote unquote monologued really, because he was just annoyed people was here. And then yeah, cast a firebolt, and Amber, who played a dexterity paladin with the shield master feat, was like, I take no damage, because she already rolled her dex save, and I'm like, well, first of all, it's an intelligence save, and second of all, it's a necrotic fireball. And that was that was how combat kicked off, and it was I liked the encounter. I put in some stuff like I rolled obviously in private every single round. I rolled I think it was a d20, and depending on if it was above a 10 or below a 10, either he was in charge or the personality / soul of the Warforged that originally inhabited the body took over. And whenever that happened, I mean, he didn't attack or anything. He was just super fucking confused and was like, where am I? What the fuck? And then he went to cover because there's just spells and shit going on. And yeah, I enjoyed that. That was one of my best DM experiences. As for bad ones, yeah, don't have that many, honestly. Like, not.
I mean, as a player, you can also say some.
I don't really remember bad. I mean, my die. Oh, actually, I look at Mark. Mark killed me with shadows.
Fucking Mark, man.
That was
We brought you back.
that's classic
Yes.
D&D.
Yeah.
We brought you back.
Yes,
I
You
got-
were a little skeleton though.
Yeah, I got brought back through devil deals and stuff, and then I was stuck with having a
Passenger. I love that man.
yeah.
What a guy.
Listen up,
Just-
I had a dragonborn arm and a frog leg, so like
True.
don't even add
That's-
it.
It got better. Alright.
It got better.
Yeah.
I like the dragonborn arm though. It was pretty cool.
But yeah, no, I guess the shadow thing was kind of a bad player experience, but in the end it sort of worked out, so it's not too bad. It's not like I was, like, oh wow, fuck you, Mark. Well, how could you? But yeah, and that's about it, I think.
I'm very interested in what Amber and Gabe have to say.
I have my list, but I'll let ladies first if Amber wishes.
I
I'm
still
a
have a good
lady.
moment I want to talk about later as well. Oh.
Okay. One of
Oh,
my
Ferris,
favorite
Ferris,
things.
your thing was
Yeah.
muted.
Oh, my yes, no, sorry. I was just gonna say, but before we start, I have two. Well, I'm not gonna go into length about this. Yes, I see you're making a face, Amber. As a DM, hosting for a low amount of people. In this case, one that comes to mind is specifically for Amber, Gabe, and Mark, where they went off to fight some plants that I put together. That was a really nice thing, just because low amount of people. And yeah, it was just fun to host. And same when it comes to playing with low amount of people. Mark hosted for Amber and me, our characters, like 2-3.
A
Quest-
lot of
Oh,
times.
wow.
That's what I was going into.
Okay.
When my good
Then I will let you talk about.
Let Mark do that moment.
Yeah.
Sorry, Amber. Go ahead.
No, but Amber, you can go first.
One of my favorite things that I made as a dungeon master was Jenny. And Jenny lives in
bless
a
fucking Jenny.
nice little house with a wild garden that is perfectly contained in a metal picket fence, or like a little metal fence. And um, Jenny is a hag of a
Really?
very high level.
I don't care. She was wholesome as fuck.
She turned an ancient blue dragon into a tiny little, like, pipsqueak dragon, cursed him. And this dragon was so angry, and this dragon would always attack people, and he deals only 1 damage, one lightning
His
damage.
save DC was 24 still, so people would
Yeah.
freak out
Yeah.
It's
when
like,
they'd see the
only
save
a
DC, and then it'd
24
just be
DC
like,
dexterity
1
save.
lightning
What?
damage.
For 1 lightning
Mm.
damage, but the DC is still 24, yes. But Jenny is a fortune teller, and players would sometimes run into her. Her house would move randomly around the map, you know. It could show up at any place. So like if you roll Jenny on the thing, it's fine because Jenny can be literally anywhere, even if you saw her yesterday in a completely different place. She's nice. She offers people a cup of tea. She has a little butler. I think her butler was like an invisible Kenku.
Yeah.
It was like a, you know, very good boy. And Jenny has a house that is full of like super cool magical knickknacks that players just love to look at. And Jenny can actually tell your future, aka what may or may not happen on your next quest. But one of the other things that Jenny has is a deck of many things, which some people didn't find out about until they had already drawn from the deck of many things. Oops. But I really loved, you know, working on Jenny because she had like I built like a lot of tables up for her for the different kind of readings that she'd do, and like I would give different types of like fortunes and whatnot, and it would give characters, you know, it would allow us to explore like alternative futures and pasts for characters and give them a little bit more depth to, you know, what lies ahead of them. And I could also seed some like encounters for later down the line, you know, events that may come to happen to everyone, and they'd be like, no way.
It was
Yep.
foretold.
It
Oh
was
my God.
foretold, just like Jenny said. So piggybacking off of this goes into my worst moment.
Mm,
The TPK.
TPK.
That
So
was a tough one.
with the tables from the Raging Swan Press, we generated this little village that was just like a random little village with ivory houses, and at night, like this was desolate. It was one of those places that is like it's been dead for a long time. Why is there no people here? What happened to these people that once settled it? The ghosts would come out at night. And that is when you could like communicate with them. I think if you drank their liquor, their ghost liquor, you would be able to understand and like talk to them. And so you could like chill with them and hang out. So
Could I join in a moment? Real
yes, of
quick on that?
course.
Because I rolled that, and originally it was just houses. Like, literally all it said was just, like, houses. So I'm like, how do I get this interesting? And so I put ghosts in there, and somehow it came to this really memorable place. Because for some reason, I'm like, wait, none of them can see ghosts. So here, have a drink that can make you see ghosts. And that was really fun. I just wanted to jump in there real quick.
Yes. So this place remained there for a while until one day I picked it up. I picked up a quest idea because I had a monster in mind, and I was like, this is a great idea for why, you know, this is one of those examples of like I roll a result and I'm like, what can I do with this? And I'm like, wait, there's this place, and maybe I could connect the two because of the lore that is attached to this monster. A Balhanath. So now this village of like ghosts was once a prosperous mining town. I think it was literally called Ambition. The village was literally called Ambition. And one day the people dug too deep. They broke the tunnel open into like an underground lake. And then they said for the night, all right, that's enough for the night. Like, we can't deal with this. At night, all the people were awoken by a lure, like a mental pull that brought them all down into the into the mines in single file. And then by morning, there was only corpses floating in that underground lake because they had all been pulled in by a Balhanath. So now cue my players going there. The players go and fight the Balhanath. It is an absolute slaughter. This Balhanath is just singling them out too easily. Like I had a map that was like a large central map, and it had like these tunnels going around the side as well. I can remember it like it was yesterday. There's all these tunnels going around the side, and some of the people were like using those tunnels to maneuver and like reposition themselves. but it wasn't really going in in any great way, like they were just making mistakes, rolls were bad. There were some really strong characters in there, like characters that could have AC 26 or 27 if they so wanted it. But the Balhaneth was consistently hitting literally every single one of them. Like I was rolling in the open, they could see that things were just not going well. And now comes the moment. It was already 11:30 at night. Like I'd been running this quest for several hours, and the Belhana fight has taken a turn for the worse. One of the player characters runs into a corner of the cavern. He gets to his knees and he pulls out an ivory card that he got from Jenny. Maybe the same day or maybe like a couple sessions before that.
I think it was the same day.
Same one. It was
And
the
he
same one.
draws upon this card.
Oh no!
Mhm.
Core memory unlocked. Ah,
I remember
He
this so
draws.
well.
so this was what happened before that.
He draws upon the Ace of Hearts, also known as the Fates card. And he wishes upon Jenny's card and says, I wish this Balhaneth was never here to begin with. And that is where it all begins.
That is where it all spiraled down into madness.
Reality is pulled asunder as the Balhaneth was never here to begin with. But that means that there was space out there for something else. And there is only one thing that would gladly take over this wet, damp cave.
A Karen. Oh, wait.
Karen. One of the many elder brains that infect the island that this campaign takes place on. An elder brain joined by several mind flayers. And so now, as reality warps around them and the players are struggling to pull themselves back together because the Belhaneth is gone. And so all their stuff, like all their resources are back. But they are still here. And now, there is an elder brain that immediately slaps down a force cage around most of them.
Consumed.
Yeah.
And this is already like I at this point I've like given up. I couldn't like the ramifications of what they did so late on in the fight, and I was so tired. I was like, I messaged DMs. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like it's so late.
Mhm.
I can't begin a whole new quest. And Mark like literally tag teams me and takes over the quest, and there's just an absolute slaughter going
Mark
on
was
there.
known to be
I
quite
was-
a heavy
Players
hand.
being murdered. I think
I
only
am-
one of
yeah.
them got one or two of them managed to get away because
one.
it
Yeah.
didn't immediately get force caged because they were very small. It was a little mouse. It was Peanut the mouse
Peanut,
Mhm.
got
yeah.
away because he was so small he could run away, but the other ones were grabbed and literally torn asunder or turned into mind flayers. I think
Yeah.
one of them made like a deal with a devil to get out.
Passenger.
Yeah.
The
I mean,
whole like fallout of that situation, horrible. But
I
like
remember that so well.
Fate's card, the deck of many things is cool, but sometimes the deck of many things is
Yeah.
not
It's
so cool,
cool.
especially if players just don't know how to handle it.
I mean, yeah, I mean, to jump into it, I can remember Amber being so tired. I mean, tired is probably the right word, but she felt so angry whatever happened. She was just not having it. And I was indeed known to have a heavy hand. I was literally like the most, if this thing would kill you, it murders you. I don't care if you're dying. Uh,
Highest kill
and,
count
and,
is
and
not just a tile.
and I think Amber might also join me in the highest kill count. I remember
Yeah.
because Amber killed a lot
She
of
might.
people as well, but in a different way. But so we decided this Elder Brain was there, and I'm like, yeah, this Elder Brain's not gonna hold back. It's just as confused as the players. Like literally, it was born into existence through magic. So what does it do? It just force cage. You're stuck. You can't do shit. You've lost. Literally, they were at the level that they could not handle that. So it was literally an instant lose for them.
Mm.
So, yeah, it was. Yeah, it was rough, but yeah, it was a moment. Gabe, I think I don't, unless you wanted to do anything else, Amber.
No, I think that we can. Gabe and White should
Yeah.
have their moments, and then you can say your thing, and then we can
Yeah.
round off for today.
Yeah. My worst and possibly best moment as a DM was my very first quest, where my task was simple. people to travel different regions of our West marches
Oh.
had these teleportation circles that they would use to, well, ease in the times of travel and transportation so that we could cover more distance. Every time we arrived at a certain point, we tried to inscribe or discover a new of these circles and connect them to the existing net. Only that a little nilbog, a very fancy goblin,
That's one way to describe them.
it is one way to describe them, took possession of one of these circles by just building a little camp around it. And so, being it my first quest, I took a bunch of very low level players, set up a, let's say, comic relief in a way, but at the same time, I was ready for many things. Encounter, but what I wasn't ready for was the complete mayhem that ensued, starting with the players destroying the teleportation circle, even though they were instructed in what to do, not to touch anything else. Somehow they managed to break it. They tried to enslave the Nilbog, at which I was a bit perplexed and confused, and then even more confused when they didn't manage to do so. They managed to almost get killed by puppy versions of hyenas and this single Nilbog. And then the guy also managed to run away with the entirety of the loot by going invisible and sneaking away while they set afire the entire forest that this guy settled into. Luckily, they managed to put out the fire after just a few trees burnt down and not the entire area, of which I was extremely happy about. But at the same time, I was at a loss because it was my first quest, first time I ever DM'd, and being not used for things to go out of plan, which you should be, by the way, because it always does, especially for the DM. I was left with a pretty heavy impression of how it is to DM for people. And it was fun. It was traumatic, but it was also fun. For my player perspective, my most feared moment, I guess, the most terrible moment, which just escaped me. I was about to say right at this moment. I will bring in the second worst, I suppose, because that is how far as I remember. Was a fight with a certain Hydra that we mentioned a little bit before. It was a tough opponent, and not because it was out of our level or CR or anything like that, but because in the middle of a fight, we started fumbling a bit with fires and torches and everything else. And now I just remember what I wanted to say before. And we didn't manage to defeat this thing because we failed at trying to stop its regeneration, which at the end of the day, we didn't really need to because we were kind of outsourcing it in the damage we dealt. And slowly, that thing grew heads and heads and heads and managed to pretty much wipe us out. We had a
For
little.
reference, a Hydra gets an extra attack every
head it grows.
Free head, yeah.
and
Exactly.
It gets a head each time.
It's
Well, I
so-
don't remember.
It has a
it's-
number of
it-
reactions and for
it-
opportunity attacks equal to its head as well.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It
It takes 25 damage. That is
Yeah.
what the thing is.
yeah.
Then it gets heads and it restores the HP.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It takes more than 25 damage. Is it from an attack, one attack, or
Anything.
per turn?
Per turn, I think.
Yeah, it should
Yeah,
be
might be.
better. And that was quite traumatic because from going positively well and trying to build this new outpost where this Hydra's lair was, we had a 9 TPK where the only surviving member was a Tabaxi monk that my character, a hobgoblin barbarian, put on the card before going back to solo the Hydra and get promptly killed. It was
Yeah.
a pretty cool fight, pretty interesting, as TPKs didn't usually happen. So we had player deaths, but not entire parties wiped out. And it was also influenced by a quest that I joined, and I guess I could vote that one probably the worst, or my worst player experience, when a certain friend of mine, a certain dear friend of mine, who I'm not gonna name, played a wild magic Tabaxi sorcerer called Meal. And while I was surrounded by a troll and two boars the size of a troll with regeneration, fireballed me promptly wild surged voluntarily and turned his arms into chicken legs and then fucking legged it. So I was there, a barbarian being basically beaten down by 3 huge things, failing with 2 nat ones my dex save against the fireball. And I was left alone because my dear friend couldn't cast any spells and deemed it was better to just leave me to die.
No.
Luckily, I had another dear friend of mine with a pair of boots of flying that came in just in time, dropping vials of oil and torches to grab me as I tried to do the same as we were fleeing. And I survived by the skin of my forehead, thanks to, as well, one of Janie's cards,
Oh,
who I drew, I think 1 or 2 sessions before. It was a fortune cookie or something like that. But
Oh.
Fortune cookie. You got a black
Ye-
fortune cookie from the Rooster's Pot, which is oh, my other favorite
Yeah,
thing.
it was,
It
yeah,
was the Ghost Tavern, the Ghost Eatery.
it was a great
I got this fortune cookie that saved my life as it stopped me from dying, which was I was very close to multiple times. And I sadly cannot say that this meal friend of mine helped me out a lot in that situation.
It's yeah. There's
Absolute Tabaxi moment.
Yeah, the Baxies are a thing.
Hmm? Yeah, Tabaxis are pieces of scum. That's what we're saying.
that is.
Yeah.
I think.
No, you don't get the context.
Let me pull this up real quick.
Yeah, and while you do that, is it okay if White tells this story about good
Yeah.
moment? Yeah.
I can tell my good one now that I've finished mentally recovering from telling about my bad one. I think I've had a couple of good experiences in West Marches. One was I remember when Mythic Odysseys of Theros came out, and I was fucking ecstatic. We had finally rules for effectively like bosses with a second stage, and although you could do your own way about it, it was nice to have like, hey, this is what the first party is like doing. And in place of those real rules anyway, so I remember I griped and I complained about the Pharaoh before being just crazy and just being a really tough time. But one of the good things was running him. He was without a doubt one of the most fun bosses I had run, because he simply was just so cool. He had so many things he could do. The fight was intense, it was amazing, and the victory was properly well deserved. I think the event was amazingly done, and I think everything I put towards it was great. Players were shitty though. So that's the DM one. A player fun thing I had was playing in the Caracos, the West Marches, was when I was playing Caloran, and my only goal. It's literally all I wanted to make this me happy, to make this character happy. It was very simple what you needed to do, and that is put me in front of a mind flayer.
And there was no scarcity of that.
And there was no scarcity of them
Yeah.
on this island. And I eventually I got a hold of like a weapon, and I'd built my character in a particular way, specifically with the intention of, if I get the chance, I'm basically a glass cannon. I will run at a mind flare, and I will hit it once, and it will die. And
And I'll die.
I am very happy that I got to do that at least once. The only unfortunateness was the fact that Mark refused to let his favorite NPC die by giving him literally a magic item that said, "Oh yeah, okay, you're going to exist." Yeah, no.
I don't like that.
It basically gave them the orc ability, the half orc ability. That one.
No, it fully restores their HP. Else my second attack.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. I don't remember fully.
He
But yeah,
does
no,
live in them
no.
too.
I mean,
Yeah,
also my
Mark
favorite one.
basically
My
just was
favorite.
like, hey yo, so you know this bad guy, this is doing this stuff, and it's just like, hey yo, so you can kill him in a single strike. I'll allow that because it's what you've built your entire character on. Sure.
You're
But
right.
also, this bad guy also happens to magically have an item that can do that. It was
You're right. You're right.
terrible, frankly.
You're right. You're right.
It was
right.
just terrible.
Also, I will say my favorite NPC was Passenger. I'm not gonna say anything.
He
else.
fucked up so many people, okay?
Yeah, I love Passenger. Although the only deal Passenger made was literally saying, "I'll help you, but you're not allowed to ever hurt me ever again."
Yeah, literally.
But no, I to quickly come back is one of my favorite moments. It's kind of sad that Amber isn't here, but to give you some context, I as a DM in the later ends of the West Marches basically became Ferris and Amber's personal DM. Because Amber and Ferris, or Amber specifically, rarely ever got to play because of the tokens she gained, her character became such a high level that there were not a lot of people on her level. So I hosted a simple quest for was it Hell at that point? I think it was Hell.
It was hell.
Yeah, for Hell. And who were you playing back then? Were you
Nick.
still playing? Yeah, you were playing Nick.
Nick.
And
Nick.
no, Nick. And to give you even more context, Nick was just as difficult to DM for as it was for DMing for the Barbarian. Because Nick's like, yeah.
I know. I was just gonna come in and say, at the very least, I didn't set out to make the character that could be that difficult.
No.
And
Instead, you just made 300 spell scrolls for Shield.
And well, yes. However, being a DM myself and knowing that this is things we dealt with as well, it I at least made some own rules for myself in terms of okay, well I'm not gonna shield an attack when I have no idea what it's gonna do to me. Like if the bad guy comes up to me and hasn't hit anyone else, I'm not gonna shield that. Which Anyway, I didn't set out to make a character with a million AC.
Yeah.
It just happened.
It just happened. Anyway,
It seems
the
to do that in a lot of games.
Hey man, I just wanted to try out an Eldritch Knight. I'd never played one, and I was like, yeah.
Anyway, the quest that I made literally had no combat in it because one, I was a bit afraid for combat because it's two characters, so if one of them goes down, it could be game over. But the quest I made was that the party found this abandoned bell tower in a swamp, and it literally had the bell like they could see that it had it crushed onto a body. The moment you stepped into this bell tower, you would have been taken back in time to some principle, like taken back in time only with this bell tower. So what happened is it got back in time, and they kept trying to save this person.
That lady.
The lady, yeah, and they kept failing, and then each time they got back into they would like go back into time, and each time one of them would die. Like at least every time one of them would die, and every time this happened, they would go back in the future for a moment, and they would see that the other person was fucking dead. Like there was a skeleton of that person in a changed situation. And it was one of my favorite quests because it was so simple, yet it entertained the entire evening. And I'm really upset that I don't remember how it ended. Like I tried to pull it back.
I do remember how it ended. I specifically do because I left that quest quite emotional. It ended that we couldn't save the girl. The room inside that bell tower was filled with these shadow-like creatures, and we couldn't really figure out a way to change the past because, as you say, most of the times you couldn't. And I know that I left as a lawful good human cleric, absolutely ravished by the experience because I just saw this woman die and die and die again. And the last time we went back to the future and we couldn't go back into the bell tower was because the entire tower was collapsed.
Yeah.
The bell collapsed into the room, what we usually wear, and nothing was left of it. And I
Yeah.
remember vividly that to that quest, I left one of my magic items. I believe it was an amulet or a pendant, and I left it there purposely because I just felt so horrible
Yeah.
because I couldn't simply save this person.
Yeah, I think the entire like if I remember correctly, I made that bell tower, and the entire point of the bell tower was that you couldn't save her. Like no matter what happened, no matter what you would have tried to change, someone would have died. Uh, and that was the entire quest. It was all about accepting that the past had to stay the past. So once you kept trying enough, I basically was like, okay, they're starting to not get it. They're starting to, kept trying to be the good people that they are. So they started messing with the bell to try and make it not fall. And what happened was basically this bell started swinging, and instead of falling straight down, it destroyed the entire fucking tower.
Yep.
But it was such a good quest because it had nothing to do with the entire world. It was really secluded onto its own story. Like, I don't even think I had a proper thought of where this bell tower came from. I just rolled it. I'm like, I'm gonna rock with that. And it just made for this really emotional, really sucky quest in a good way. Like, it was a quest where people had to face that they sucked and that some shit sucks. Um, I think my best moment as a player, I mean, I really like most of Amber's quests. I like the Zugrat, but honestly, it's not even a good moment. The best moment that I remember as a player was with Cyrax, once we met him for the first
Oh,
time. And I was playing Meal, and like Abe said before, Meal was very much on it, out for himself.
yeah, he was.
And but there was another Tabaxi there with Harry that was playing Weave. Um, and we started just talking. I'm like, Cyrax wanted Jerix's character because a piece of his soul could revive his dead wife. Uh, and then my character and the other character was just talking. I'm like, we should sacrifice him. Like, we
Yeah,
literally just were
straight
like,
up. Straight up. We should just kill the guy.
Interplayer drama.
like literally, it was just
Sacrifice.
it was just them saying we should sacrifice him because then we get an ally of a dragon and of this wyvern that looks very powerful, and I think we're gonna, if we fight him, we lose. So that was their train of thought, and then eventually the party somehow agreed to it. So
mean-
we sacrificed it.
Yeah. I think what
There was a fight. Like, there was some people who didn't
Yeah.
agree.
I
They
think
end up getting murdered.
I think my character was first like, nah, I don't really want to do this. But then Cyrax offered something that would help my character's love interest, which was the NPC
Yeah.
that had that bad stuff had happened to them, and he was like, you know what? Yeah, no, yeah, sure, that sounds like a good deal.
Like, it
I'm
was
a horrible DM.
Anyways, Jerix, goodbye.
Yeah, it was literally these three characters just turning to his character saying, "We're gonna sacrifice you." Like, they were very upfront about it,
I will murder you. Goodbye.
I mean,
and
yeah,
eventually
was,
got sacrificed. And
It was a nice it was a nice thing, a little bit of a conundrum of, I guess, morale.
Mhm.
But in the I liked Cyrix as a potential ally and thing that existed around the place. In the end, he tied a lot into probably one of my most satisfying player moments, where we had to stop an Alkylith from constantly spewing, I think it was either Fae or demons, into the vicinity of our camp. Because
Yeah.
this thing opened up a portal to another realm.
Hell.
And the fight that we had there was such a large scale. I enjoyed it a lot. We had a sort of like a stage fight. We had to kind of maneuver around the enemies. And Akilith is a pretty powerful thing, so it wasn't an easy thing. But in fact, the Cyrix came in, even helped us out. And I really felt satisfied when we managed to close this thing by the edge of our hair, as it was about to release something even worse than what it already did. And just saving the entire place was, I think, one of the greatest achievements that I guess a combat has ever yielded to me. The other was with my cleric, my good old boy. I saved for money pretty much for the entire time I played this character from level 5 to like 14. Never bought really anything to build my church. From a simple shack of wood to a cathedral, I just spent money and money and money and money, and I kept building my basically my player goal, which was this cathedral with a hallowed spell that allowed everyone to have the tongues effect on them, so that you could speak with whoever you wanted whenever you wanted. And once I achieved it, man, was that satisfying.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of more great moments. We reminisce sometimes. Speaking about reminiscing, that comes to our last question because it is getting late and this isn't a long one, I hope. The question is, would you ever host another West Marches? Or start hosting one?
I feel like I'd have to like put my current campaign on pause.
I mean,
'Cause that's
we're
a
not,
lot of work.
like we're saying possibly. Like we're saying if the time came for it, if you had the possible for
Sure.
time,
I'd do
would
it.
you do it?
I would, yeah, I would probably do it.
I would definitely have factions, like you
Yeah.
just suggested. I also want each DM to be a representation of some kind of deity. So it's like, damn, I'm not getting a response from God. Yeah, Faris is on holiday for the next week.
Yeah, that'd be funny. Yeah.
Like, don't contact him.
That'd be
And
cool.
it's like, I don't know, you have like a prayer channel or something you could pray and ask your God, and it's like a DM. The DM that represents your God, Cord, will respond. And I feel like that would be nice. And so it's like channel divinity, I ask God to, and it's just like Cord is like that
No.
DM who is aware of like all the good and bad things that you have done for his diet is like, no.
No.
I think that is actually a pretty cool thing. Like each DM each DM
It also
like
gives
resembles a
the
god
DM
or
a
few gods.
character.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does.
I personally, I think I would make a lot of changes for what I have done in Caracosta. But like Lupus said, Caracosta eventually, even though there were a lot of hardships, Amber and I fought a shit ton because I felt like often I was the only one that disagreed with Amber on anything, which made me like we made it we clashed a lot.
Charismatic, you see.
Hey man, at least us other
No,
DMs.
she hosted most of the sessions. That's the thing.
Well, that as well. At least us other DMs. Well, some of us didn't like the intelligence warlock that she wanted to add to the
Yeah,
game. Every
Intelligence Warlock is literally the best idea ever.
No, it's not. It's the worst idea you ever had.
It's
Sorry.
literally the best idea
Nope.
ever. You are just
But-
disagree
I
because
want to
you are
try
mad.
the Giphy glyphs.
Yeah. But if
No, what?
I know you do.
But I'm gonna quickly pull it back. I would love to, but also only if time permitted it, and if I had a good team. Like one, you need a team, but really, I have such good memories of this community, and I mean, most of the community that we had back then is still there. It was actually one of the reasons Amber was afraid to stop DMing for Caracosta because she was afraid the community would die out. Luckily, that has not been the case for at least a lot of the core people. But I think to create such a community again, and with the proper team, with the proper planning, with the proper settings like the factions and stuff, I think you'd be able to create something so great, so nice, so fun to play. I'd be willing to do it again if I had time and if I had the right people.
You sound like you're reading a script, Mark. Yeah.
No, I am not. I am not.
Is Amber paying you to say this?
Now there's Tony with a piece of paper that's like right below him.
Tony's idiot with a gun in the corner of the map.
All right, she's asked Tony to do it.
I mean, I agree with that
outsourcing.
sentiment. That like, yeah, I'd host again. Hey Tony.
Bang bang.
Hey Tony.
I'd I'd definitely host again. As Mark said, just time and the right people. And yeah, just make some changes with new stuff you've learned. And the whole God idea is quite interesting. But yeah, no,
I think it'll be cool. I also think like if you're gonna play into factions, I think there needs to be a way to do it better than the Wizards of the Coast Adventure League style of doing
100%.
factions.
There always is.
Yeah. I just don't really know what it would look like.
I mean,
I think Tasha's Cauldron of Everything has some stuff which would be definitely good to pull from.
I think
Minsk and Booze has a.
I mean, one thing you can also do
I'll
is
have to read
with
about it.
One
Look, I
thing.
do not have.
Yeah, same. I would like to read it too, but not online, not on Twitch, no. But I'd agree. But I think what you would do instead of like the ranks that normal guilds of, you just do the like level ranks, like we did gold, silver, blah 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 blah. You just go give each of those a name and rank, and maybe with some special abilities that you get to do, and then you'd be pretty set. I feel like,
Overlord.
Yeah, some privileges.
yeah, some like, oh, you can
I
now
think
buy
I think
things at the shop.
putting certain privileges in place would be good, and then segregating that out per level. I also avoid situations where it's just like players like wanting to, for example,
Items in the colony's wealth, as an example of that.
Hmm.
I
The
was
porcelain wanting the +3 greatsword of the platinum player.
yeah, I was thinking s- segregating stuff like that out, but also like putting certain permissions behind stuff. It's like yeah, we're not gonna let people below a certain rank to purchase certain items
Mm.
just to keep things
Mhm.
a bit more reasonable, in line with whatever we have for power scaling. Because as Gabe just mentioned, you don't want the porcelain, the level 1 player, to pick up the
Yep.
+3 greatsword
Yeah.
that somebody just so happened to die with, and
Left in the group wealth.
yeah, left in the
Yeah.
group well for whatever reason. Something really nice my university does is wills, actually. Anytime a player dies, they have a will which they paste in like a channel, which is almost like it's their farewell to pretty much NPCs, to fellow player characters, and the world in general, to say, I have died, do this with my stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, I will this equipment to these players, and the rest of it I give to the guild.
Yeah.
And what would end up happening is the guild would often generate this hoard, literally this item hoard. And one of the problems that the university game has is that players don't have anything to spend money on. So they just accumulate wealth, and then what happens is it's payday, it is auction time, and the guild auctions off stuff, and it's a fun event where players are like
Nice.
bidding against each other, and people are, I think at one point some guy ended up spending like 10k, 20k gold, some ridiculous number on like a very particular magic item that fucking meant nothing to most people, but with his particular character build, it resulted in this stupid thing happening. I think it was the whole I think it was the dwarven toughness
Oh,
maximized
the
healing.
amulet
Course.
of health, dodge, healing,
It's
dice
the
thing.
it is
Yeah.
the periaptive
So
wound
how?
closure or
Oh,
something.
That
Yeah.
one, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Anyway, it just
Yep.
resulted in that, and then also other problems with that, of like some players being like, I have a lot of gold, I don't want to actually buy anything, but I just
I'm just
like
gonna buy out of spite.
people just buying out of spite, or people just what's the word? People artificially
Shill
inflating
bidding.
the
Shill
Yeah.
bidding.
chill bidding, yeah, artificially inflating the price of items. Where it's like there's one player that wants it, there's one player that votes on it, no one else does it. It goes once, goes twice, and then just before it ends, they'll be like, they up it by like 10 gold or whatever, and it's like,
Mm.
okay.
Why?
Other players are ups it by another 10, says nothing, going once, going twice, ups it by another 10 gold, and then it's just like, are you gonna vent anything more? It's
Yeah.
just like, oh my god, I can't believe you're doing this. It's like, yeah, I'm doing this. And then it's just like, and I up it by 1,000 gold because I'm 5 ranks higher than you, and I get way
Yeah.
more gold every session than you do.
I think that
Yeah.
also ties in with, brackets, as you said, and the possibility of doing certain things. If I was ever to do an action about, items of dead adventures, I would put people that earn a certain income within a certain bracket. So you fucking Orichalcum level 20
Oh,
player with 500 gold cannot, go auction with the schmuck that takes 2 copper a quest.
I just had a great idea of like, you have factional hordes, like, oh, our horde has a flame tongue sitting in it. What does
Ooh.
yours?
Yeah, I really would love to see something like that.
And
Like
it's
a
like,
state treasure.
it's like, okay, guys, there's this new dungeon that we just discovered. The other faction doesn't know about it, but you're going to get this one quest to go on it before they do. You need to reclaim these items back for the guild, for the faction.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool, and maybe you could even get bonuses to it. But I'm gonna quickly drag it back because otherwise we're gonna talk
Yeah,
about this for
we'll
another
go on
half
and on.
an hour. So Amber, would you do it again?
Would I do it again?
Would I?
Would I do it again?
Like, let's say that the situation is more available. Like, let's say you don't have 5 sessions a week. Me.
I'm not
Uh,
gonna say that I would do it again, but I am going to say that right after the 2 like mini adventures I have written up to host is the
West
80s
March.
80s dungeon crawl West Marches Holes of Deep Reach that White and I have been looking into together.
Gabe?
You may or may
Oh.
not see one day.
Hmm.
But other than that, maybe.
Gabe, what would you?
I would love to play in another West Marches. As a DM, one thing that I incredibly regret is that I started DMing in that West Marches because I couldn't commit enough and I couldn't support the few DMs that were there enough with the low level of skills that I had to keep it up. But yeah, pretty much. But with more experience and with a bit more, planning and scheduling, I would absolutely do it because even the little quests that I did and the long time that I played, I did have a blast for that. And yeah, I'd love to do it again.
Yeah. Well, you've heard it here. I will say, I think overall, most of us can describe our experience with West Marches that we've had a lot of fun, we've had a lot of struggle. There's definitely good sides, there's definitely bad sides, and it's a difficult thing. I'd say hosting a campaign is much easier than hosting a West Marches or be part of hosting a West Marches.
I think in many ways, yes.
In many ways, like
In
there's
other ways,
different ways. It's more complex in other ways, but it's more the fact that you have to work together with other
Yeah.
DMs with
yeah, that's
constantly
difficult.
different players.
Yeah.
I'm a lone wolf.
If
It,
you
it,
you
Ah,
can't
woo!
if you can't actually find DMs who are willing to work together, then yeah, that's not gonna work.
I want to say stay tuned for Caracosta V2. No, I'm kidding. Don't. I don't
Yeah,
think that.
Caracosta the
No.
third expedition, Mark.
Oh,
Yeah, it's the third
It
expedition,
would,
but
yeah.
the second version. But outside of that, I think we have talked pretty well.
Yeah.
It's been a solid 3 hours. I know that some of us have to go to
Mhm.
sleep soon. Me, yeah. But I think it was a very good talk. Again, you might see behind the tales at other dates. We'll see. Maybe I won't be there next time. Maybe because I know I'm on a vacation for a week, so there's a spot open on Saturday twice. It's in November, so it's not soon. But like that point, we could do one. Do let us know anywhere if you have any type of conversation you would like us to have. Maybe ask about classes, ask us what our opinion is about certain classes, subclasses, to go more in depth there. Any type of thing that you're interested in, let us know. But for now, thank you all for watching. Follow us, please. We'd love to have you join our Discord, and that is about it.
Yeah.
And of course, thank you all to our wonderful people who spend their Saturday evening talking about D&D and West Marches.
Yeah.
It was lovely being here as always.
I need to do
Was
this.
indeed a pleasure.
For watching and thanks for participating. And I guess also yeah, thanks to the people who Caracosta people, players and DMs.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. And thank you for University West Marches, whose name I don't know, but
That
thank
is-
you.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, we just call it NUS Marches. Literally, just the university name.
Yeah. But
yeah.
yeah, we will see you guys at another date, at another time. Well, perhaps the same time, but another date. Good night, guys. Say goodbye.
Good night.
We'll catch you
See you
behind the
later.
tail.
God damn it, Amber.